Here.
Ashley Morrow.
Here.
Rebecca Kirk.
Here.
Alan Cohn.
Here.
Kathleen Shanahan. Ron Cristaldi.
Kathy's here, she waved.
Oh, okay.
Here, this is Ron, I'm here.
Sue Carlton. Here. Alison Hewitt.
I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we're moving to public comment.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Board, committee members. Through the hubbub that's going on at City Council right now, it shouldn't have a bearing on what you were chosen to do. And that is look at the charter and feel that you need any other things or any decisions on how it should change. Please don't let it affect the great job you have been doing. What the City Council is saying now. Secondly, please look at any type of zoning change that should be and could be done by a hearing master. It will not only speed up the process, but it will also have greater opportunities for the public to speak about this. And it will lead more important things for City Council to do, such as city plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so I would like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2026.
Second.
And moved by Rebecca Kirk and seconded by Garrett Greco. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. All right, motion carries.
Hey, good job in, thank you. Hello, everyone again. Evening. Agenda wise, fairly standard, with a couple of tweaks. So one again, progress and objectives. I want to really zero in our plan and finish because we're getting real close. I'll leave a little bit of time for new business. Some of you may have some things to discuss. We'll see when we get there and then adjourn. Moving into the slides. So the good news and congrats is that we really did complete the review of the charter language itself last week. And agree to recommended changes. Again, that's related to what's there today. We are working on items that have come out of either public comment or new items this group recommended we discuss. One is around ethics, fraud, waste, abuse, etc. So hopefully tonight we can complete that discussion. We have 4 related action items that have been completed to share with you.
And then admit, we don't control,
I don't know what
or
you're
the
asking.
Allen admit, but we don't control them.
We don't control the law.
We don't control, it said Alex and.
I was just trying to get.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I thought she said she was here earlier when she answered. Allison, are you on?
No, she's not.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Allison. We just, Zoom is acting up and we didn't see you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So we have 4 action items completed for this week's request last week. We'll go through that. The zoning discussion, we spent some time last time on that, and we asked for Ken to provide language options that we might consider for inclusion. That was the one action item for that topic from last time. And then actually, there's an item about revisiting the notion of trying to provide for charter language that might assist with rigor around getting projects completed on time, and we'll get to that, but I just want to mention those are the 3 areas. They're all past the content proper from where we were. So that's the plan. Let's jump in, everyone. Make this a little bit smaller, bear with me. So the first topic was driven by, if you remember, there was a public comment by someone. All of you, I think, have seen that detail, and it was really around the notion that a complaint was filed against him with HR, but HR was essentially the arbiter of the ethics group. He felt like he didn't have anywhere to go, and that's the city. I'm not commenting on the harassment, I'm just commenting on the comment. That led us to a conversation around the general topic of independent inspector generals, ethics, city auditors, etc. I highlighted the new items because this is the second Congress. We've spoken about this. To give you a sense for where we are, let me drain these and then we'll go to them. And I'll also ask Ken to help me with some of the work he did, so thank you, Ken. One was to research how municipalities with Inspector General with similar language in their charter to actually perform that function, and Ken has done that, and I'll take us there in a minute. Find out if the city has a compliance officer, they do not, that's the short answer on that, so no links there. Obtain the city auditor's job description, which I've done and provided. And then find out more about how the city handles fraud, waste, and abuse allegations and request policies and procedures. For which we can see sections of the personnel manual, the ethics code, and then the internal fraud hotline information. So those were our takeaways. We completed those. And what I'd like to do now is actually go there and give you the rundown and then have that conversation again and see if you all want to move forward with language in the charter or not. Bear with me. So how do they perform the function? This is the document, Ken, you hold together. Could you just summarize that really quick, if you don't mind, because I can bring let me take a video if you can. I knew where we were going down. Thank you. And to drive. So, sure.
Before I begin, I want to introduce Kate from you.
Hi guys, my name is Ava Reese. I'm a summer associate at Carlton Fields. Pleasure to be here.
You're like, you're a regular first attraction for my summer associates. So. Show what we do. Hopefully you all got a chance to take a look at this. What you had tasked me with was coming back with an explanation of what these inspector general offices do. And I tried to narrow it to the three different structures. From the smallest, medium to Jacksonville, which is always weird. Jackson, as you probably know, is a consolidated city county and has one of the longest charters that exists in the state of Florida. They don't do anything small there. What I tried to compare for you is the idea of a single office, single person, a small office with a staff, and then obviously a much larger operation. The idea of this inspector general, what I found the common point across the board was this entity sits aside from the mayor and council, has different levels of authority to investigate standards that are put, to look at city contracts, employees. There was a difference between the three as to whether or not the complaint had to be signed, whether someone had to put their name on it or it could be anonymous. Lots of choices there in terms of the level of detail, but none of them had the ability to set policy. This was to draw attention to things, to issue reports, and to make referrals outside, if necessary, of the city if they found wrongdoing. So the idea of this was to give you kind of the lay of the land as to what's out there. There's not a lot of places that have it, but clearly there's been some issues in certain jurisdictions where they felt having a third party that was attached to the city government for this kind of review was necessary. I'll stop there and see if you have questions.
Have you gleaned any reviews of how these offices work or are perceived to work in these cities?
I don't know if I have any judgment calls. The newest one is Doral. They just went through a full charter revision and resulted in subdivision. As to the others, it appears these have been long-standing programs and it's just a part of city operations.
Any other questions, Ken, on this? I scroll just to give you a sense for what was covered. I think that's into this, so. Everything.
Right, you can see the common themes here as to being able to refer things out. It's a unique thing, and Doral is the person that can also be a code enforcement officer, which That struck me as interesting. And then you see that it went from anonymous complaints are not accepted to Miami, you have to be sworn, to Jacksonville, it's a hotline anybody can call. So you can see the variety that's happening.
Thank you for the work, and any questions again for that? The first item, second is internal auditor job description.
Okay, maybe I'm not.
Again, not gonna read all of this, you guys probably have already. But you can.
I had a question on the, not a question on the IG, but could I don't know, are you moving on to another topic, Ron?
Go ahead, Kathleen, that's great.
Can you guys hear me?
Sure can, yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry I'm not there. My sister just had her knee replaced like this morning, so I'm sorry I'm not in the room. But you know, for the state of Florida, we had an IG office that was like 3 people. So just to give you some, that was for the entire state. And they really dealt with, but they did have IGs in each one of the departments. So I think I was wondering if there's a way, and I don't know what the motivation is around this and how complicated we wanted to make it, but I don't know that you want to create a whole division or operation, but I wonder if there was an ability to do a contract that was focused on an independent resource, you know, that you had to go through a application. So a law firm basically would serve as an IG for the city and have whatever the structure is that gets further refined through discussion, that they provide the service that clearly some members of the commission are looking for that to them to do without having to pay for a full-time employee that might not be so busy, or a staff of whatever, 2 or 3 people. I mean, that's an inordinate expense to add, but you're trying to get the service provided for, I guess, ethical considerations and review and outlet. Anyway, just a consideration.
So really outsourcing is what you're saying there, Kathleen, could that be an option?
Correct. I mean,
Okay.
outsource the function so that you're not adding all the cost, with some definition of what their authority would be, and that would all be part of a contract that could be bid.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
You scroll through it, what do the 3 cities do here? And I didn't get a chance to look at this kind of process. How are they appointed? Yeah, actually.
For each, it was an appointment through having a committee outside of, both combination of inside and outside the city, that would then make a recommendation and went through the regular process with city council and mayor.
Okay.
They each had a point of having some other group that helped participate in the process. And to answer Kathleen's question, that there's always the ability for city council to decide we want to hire a firm to handle X, Y, and Z and handle an issue.
And I'm assuming that process could be unfolded the same way, whether they hire someone to cover the staff, or as Kathleen suggested, hire a firm or someone to outsource that.
Exactly, and if you were to propose this and city council agrees that something forward in the charter, it's a question then similar to the zoning issue, you put a very high level, we're gonna have something like this, then we'll deal with this in an ordinance, and whether we outsource or however we handle it, or do you put more detail as to that kind of.
This is Ron. Can I ask a question? Ken, thank you for putting this together. Well done. I note in what's on the screen here that in the core functions, at least I think 2 of these, if not all of them, I think all of them have mention of audit. And on the staff, some of them have reference to an auditor, an auditor being part of the office. In my mind, an inspector general and an auditor general are 2 different positions. My question for you is twofold. One, do these offices, to your knowledge, combine an audit function and an inspector general function so that they're doing both things? And then the second question is, my understanding at the city of Tampa, but I'm not sure about this, so it's a question. We already have an audit office. We already have an internal auditor.
Right. For each of these, they have the ability to do audits on a specific basis. They'll be attached to, there's a complaint about a particular contract, there's been something that's come up to their attention to audit. It is, none of them fill the regular role of the internal auditor for the jurisdiction. So then think of it as a special purpose audit. The most detailed was Jacksonville. They have an entire audit unit to it where they regularly go through different departments on a sequence. But they still don't perform the internal audit for bookkeeping purposes that the government requires.
Got it. And in of these three, correct me if I'm wrong, but Miami and Jacksonville are a county and a city, correct?
Miami's not. Miami and Miami-Dade are separate jurisdictions. This is simply the city of Miami.
Okay.
Jacksonville is a combined jurisdiction.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, shifting over to the city auditor's job description. I'll just scroll slowly, not read all of it. Most of this, I think, is fairly typical. So nature of the work. There's a big financial component, of course, to this. Example of duties. So standards, federal guidelines, etc. Consulting studies. Controls, compliance, practices, reports. Knowledge, skills, and abilities. You guys can read that. Awareness of the content that I just summarized by virtue of their roles. I don't think we have to worry about too much on the physical requirements. And then some minimum quals, licenses and certs, examination. Okay. So that's that one. Next item we requested. This is the.
I'm sorry, we moved on to another topic after the IG. It's hard to track here from afar.
Kathleen, yeah, what I'm doing right now is just showing everyone the materials that we were asked to gather for your readership as a group coming into today. So if you're looking at the master list we use, those are all hyperlinked. But I just wanted to open them in case people have questions or wanted to make comments. But these were the things that the group requested to be able to guide the next steps of the conversation. And to that we can talk purposefully about it because I think these things are all kind of related. But go ahead. Yeah, something. I'm just getting to.
No, I just wanted to know what the process was that you were following because there is. I was just on the. I mean, there is with the city a pretty Tampa-esque board. So I don't know. Anyway, go ahead and go through your process, and I guess when we get to the conversation, we can look at what we're actually trying to accomplish here. But this is a different topic at the time that you're on.
Absolutely, thank you. This will only take a minute. So this here really gets into preventing fraud, how those procedures work, what the definitions of responsibilities are. Again, you guys have probably seen all this. So I'm certainly not going to drain it all, and many of you are looking online. But that was another item that was requested. The ethics code was requested. And similar. There's a lot of overlap here, but it really explains the way the city manages these items and these issues. This is really around a hotline for intake for those things. Don't think that's rezoning. Okay, so going back to our conversation, to your point, Kathleen. Those are the items. We did manage to get all, with the exception that there's not a compliance officer, but still got an answer to that. And I open the floor to thoughts, what people maybe have learned from these materials and how we are thinking about this topic and what we might do with it inside the charter or outside of it as a recommendation. Any volunteers to start the conversation now that we've gotten these answers? All right,
Kick it off.
sure, thanks.
I think I was one of the ones who was really into this during our last meeting. It sounded like you checked a lot of boxes, so I did some research into what Ken said, and thank you for all that work. Tampa has all the things that we need to address issues of fraud, waste, abuse, grievances, disparities, etc. But what it lacks is what the process lacks is independence in terms of the accountability, oversight, transparency. So based on my research, what I found is we're at the other cities have an independent body that is apolitical, chosen by a committee that's separate from the local government, that exists parallel to the local government. What we have is a mechanism that is kind of embedded within the administrative branch of the government. And we talked a little bit about investigations on the council and et cetera, how these things might interrelate. Just as a brief overview, from what I understand, if somebody has a complaint, they'll notify their supervisor, the director, or the head of HR. The head of HR acts as the ethics officer, and HR is the ethics office. So those two are one and the same. In the way that Tampa's mechanisms work. HR will then coordinate with the internal auditor, because the internal auditor has the skills to go in and look at departments, look at how their policies work, their internal controls. Basically the department systems of checks and balances. And HR, the internal auditor, and the city attorney will then conduct the investigation on if there's fraud, waste, abuse, or if there's some other grievance or ethics violation. Which is, you know, all the things we want that explored for sure, and there needs to be a way to do it. This is just Tampa's way that they do it. My qualm with it is, I feel like it would be more. Maybe fair is the wrong word, I mean, is it more fair if there was a body that did all those things? Or when that complaint or that red flag, that signal was alerted, instead of being deviated into kind of HR audit framework, it just took a parallel track. And then an independent IG within loop in, right, maybe this is something that needs to go to HR, maybe not, maybe it's something that needs to go to an ethics commission. Maybe it's something that needs to be investigated by law enforcement, but it would be the independent IG that does the investigation. They're the ones who would have the subpoena power to look into things. And then if there are any relevant findings, then you have these other parts of the puzzle kind of come in as needed. Right now, there isn't a separation between the end of the investigation and the government kind of investigating itself. Like there needs to be that outside view or outside opinion to problems.
You like the IG concept?
I like the IG concept, and I've got a proposal for one, if you guys want to hear it. Could you pull up Miami Beach's Inspector General website? You see Miami Beach Investigator General will pop up. I think it would work for Tampa if we look at their organization chart.
Miami
Beach Inspector General.
That's enough to get it?
That'd be enough, and then if you go to the website, one of the first tabs is
Maybe.
about, yeah, that one. Go to our team, have their org chart if you scroll down. So what Miami Beach did is they had an internal auditor and internal audit department, but because of various issues in their city, they identified that they needed that separate body, but they still, of course, need an auditor for their city. So what they did is they collapsed those two departments into one. They didn't add a whole lot of staff for the Inspector General. Essentially, it's still the same audit department. They just added the ability to investigate and the separation from being embedded within the administration or the executive side of the government. I think maybe a similar model would work in Tampa. we have auditors, we have an audit department, they set their criteria for what to audit, they make their own audit plan, they independently devise that. In Tampa, the internal auditor sits on the executive board of the mayor. The mayor needs to sign the plan for the internal audit, so there is kind of that, I would say, inflation between executive authority and auditing. With this, they separate that. And then they lump in the investigation, so I think this is an interesting model. It would keep what we already have and then also add that independence. So that we can have that transparency and accountability.
When they did that, do you know how many additional people they having?
I'm guessing the ones that they added there, but I didn't go that deep into the history of the reorganization.
And who hired the IG for Miami Beach? How was he picked? Is that the independent body, Ken, that you talked about?
I did not look at Miami Beach.
Do you know how that was chosen?
I didn't go into their selection process, but I would agree with Ken from what I saw. It's usually a body of like the I wrote a couple downs, like judges, the state attorney, the public defender, so they have.
That mine ad hoc and federal section committee is further established by ordinance, Rob.
Bobby,
Would you?
sorry, I was-
Collectively agree that the IG, this concept was a good one. Is this one of those that we would script out how the city did it in the charter? Or would you recommend, what are your thoughts on whether this would be more the concept generally and how we build it would be left to those that could, workshop it and do that? What's your thoughts?
I envision the latter, but I think that's partly a political philosophy. Because I think the charter needs to be kind of high level and then the details get worked out in the ordinance when they're figuring out what policies work or not, because you want to have the flexibility. To change that if it's codified in the charter.
Right, I agree with that.
Hey, Ron, could you go ahead?
yeah, I was just gonna ask Bobby, how does this differ, add to, I think the city of Tampa already has an ethics officer and it has an ethics commission that includes, my recollection, it includes, for instance, the president of the Hillsborough County Bar Association and the dean of the Stetson Law School and stuff. So it's got the commission and an ethics officer. With that, help me understand how this would fit in and why this would be necessary in light of the audit function that we have and the ethics commission and the ethics officer we have.
Sure. So I think the ethics commission, the IG and the internal auditor, three separate but different tracks that work together. I'm lacking that perfect word to describe that, but the way that it works in Tampa right now is that the ethics commission, the ethics officer, aka HR, and the internal audit, when they conduct an investigation, they kind of work in parallel and come in as needed. In a situation where there might be an IG for Tampa, I don't see how it would differ. There would be three separate but complementary, maybe is the word that I was looking for, three separate complementary functions that they play. So the IG may be the one conducting the information, that's their primary role. If in their investigation they discover that there's an ethics violation, at that time it would be referred to the ethics commission for their fact finding, and if they find that there was, they would conduct a public hearing. If an IG is doing their investigation, vis-a-vis the auditor through their capabilities, and they discover this, hey, we need to look into this a little further, maybe there's some waste or abuse going on here. That's where the IG comes in, because they can take things a step further than an auditor. An auditor essentially just looks at internal controls and manages risk and ensures that there's a plan to address that. The IG, an additional layer on top that says, well, there's risk, but maybe there's a reason that there's a crack in the system can respond.
Did you get all that, Ron?
Yeah, I understand. Thanks, Bobby. I mean, it seems to me that my feeling is that we have this stuff covered already, but I'm interested in the discussion here. And Bobby, thank you for the explanation. It's well stated.
Sure.
Ron, I had the same thought process. I started looking into the different boards and HR and ethics committee and all that sort of stuff. And I realized the same thing you did, which is that the city does have its bases covered. However, there's no body looking at the process itself. There's no body looking at the exact procedure, a city employee goes through where something may have happened to them and they felt like they were in a bad position to share how they felt or how things went. With ethics violations and other violations, I think we've seen on this board and in the media in the last couple of years that there are problems. And again, the city does have a process to flush out these issues, but there's no independent body looking at things holistically. And I think that's exactly what this IG, this Inspector General provides. The city of Doral did their Inspector General by referendum. It went to the voters. And they put it in the city's charter. And what the city's charter provided was a Inspector General selection committee. And I think no different than how this committee was created by charter as a body to evaluate the charter. I think that's the path this committee, this body should take, is just establish the office through a selection committee. That selection committee could be appointed by the council and confirmed by the mayor or whatever way it would get flushed out. But ultimately that committee would then select an individual. And that individual could start peeling away different layers and making recommendations so that the council could make changes as necessary to fix whatever procedure the Inspector General found that wrong.
Alan,
Number one, I like Garrett's suggestion in terms of process of putting that together. My personal experience has been dealing with IGs at federal level. And I think it could be useful on the municipal level because it takes a lot of the politics and the friction out between the legislative and the executive branch, because the IG would be in a independent body. And we would get rid of what happens too often where both sides, just cry politics over any kind of effort to investigate anything. And I know from my journalism career, I've always looked to IGs at the federal level to get answers and give answers to questions in a way that people could have perhaps more faith in than what too many people have at this point in terms of their trusting in government.
any other comments before we get a read on where we may take this?
Say one more thing, I agree too, Ron, I think all the bases are, all the essential bases are covered. But I'm gonna borrow your phrase, Bill, I think I think there's a better mousetrap out there, and I think that this is it. For me, it's just that there's not that separation there, where there's the independence.
Could the ethics commission's responsibilities be expanded to include an IG function? So you're building on an already existing relatively independent commission. I mean, the commission, it consists of the president of the Hillsborough Bar, the dean of Stetson, the president of the University of South Florida or University of Tampa, and then one appointment from the mayor. I don't know if that's gets at, I mean, I just trying to go back to what we talked about from the very beginning was what problem are we trying to solve? So I keep hearing independence and the ability to look, I guess, cross-functionally or enterprise-wide, or at least be able to take in anonymous or not anonymous, pursuits. So I just wonder if we could look at some of the existing structure and how would we add the function of an IG with whatever integrity we're looking to build without building out a whole huge department.
And Kathleen, I'm gonna mention one thing before I go back, which is, I go back to what you said, Bobby, in the beginning, and I only mentioned this because it's based on the public comment that started the conversation. And it was around dysfunction kind of living inside the HR department and the public comment. Again, I'm not talking about the veracity. The claim was they look at everything else but that, and therefore there was a dead end in terms of options to try to fix it. I'm oversimplifying, but that seems to be a distinction between the two. Who owns it? Where does it live? Is it inside or maybe more outside? Rebecca, go ahead.
Isn't there a civil service board that specifically is set up to hear employee grievances? That's a question. And Ken, I don't know if you know the answer to that question. If you don't, it's okay.
What's the name of the board?
The Civil Service Board. I was on that board. I was chair of that board. It's,
Oh.
I mean, real quick, it's a mediation between the employee and the city of Tampa.
So I guess the answer is yes, it exists. I'm gonna go to Rebecca just because she had her, and I'm looking to go back to you on just a sec. Rebecca.
Sorry, I guess I'm really torn on this one. And I didn't vote to continue the discussion. Actually, I feel really bad about that already. Actually, the last 3 weeks weighed on my mind far more than what I would expect. Because I didn't feel that I had enough information to move forward, and really what we were saying is we need more information, so I felt really badly. But it moved forward anyway, so I'm gonna move on with my life. But why?
Well,
I was
Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm glad we continue the conversation. I feel that I possibly should have voted to continue the conversation rather than not to do that. I am still a little torn with creating a new position. And I, what Kathleen had said at the very beginning is, you know, great, they go through and they look at everything that we do, and you put a set of eyes, and frankly, they're not gonna have the expertise to look at all of our different, the different areas, because you can't look at this area, this area, and this area, and be an expert in all of them, and provide really, to me, a lot of value. And then you're paying someone to find things versus somebody really going in who knows what they're doing in those particular areas. So but I also will say, I'm struggling because I do hear what you're saying about some level of a third independent, not created by ordinance, which is basically driven by city council and not, you know, on the, you know, the mayor's executive staff. And so where does that leave me? And I'm thinking about what Kathleen said about, you know, if I say like a law firm or something, everyone's gonna think it's just a lawyer, right? So I don't know if that's the right thing. There are firms like KP and G, and I'm not recommending them. I didn't even like my dealings with them particularly, but there are firms like that and maybe them who do specialize in that. So maybe, yeah, subcontract, track something for those instances. And so I guess to be somewhat linear, which I'm not gonna call, I'm not really sure we need a new position to go and review all of the different processes at the city, because I don't think you're gonna have one person who's particularly good at that. I just don't. But I do feel that, you know, when you have your ethics officer as the HR person, it's in like, what? Like, it seems like maybe there is some place for some independence in that section. And I don't, and it's not that I don't think that it would be great for, you know, each individual operation to have another set of eyes on it. I just don't think one person is gonna do a great job with that. So in some, am interested, I don't think I could just support an attorney general position, although I may be in the minority on that, to just full scale be an attorney general inspector on everything. And I feel like, you know, we don't need redundancy in the audits. And I prefer to have more specialized people come in and look at things. But if there was either a suggestion or somebody had some idea of the charter on some independence on how to review, you know, some separation between HR and the ethics officer or something like that, I'm open to it, but I need to do the majority of them.
Rebecca, good points, but I think the ethics officer reports to the ethics commission too, and those people are independent.
That's what it.
No, I.
You get it, but I think I saw him back here. Go ahead, Ron, and then Bill.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Ron, go ahead, Ron, please, it was a little crazy here, go ahead and repeat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. What I was saying is Rebecca, points are well taken. My understanding is that the ethics officer reports to the ethics commission, which is an independent group. It's made up of kind of community members. One thing I would suggest to my colleagues here is, I feel like we've jumped to the form of something, right? We've picked the title IG and we're talking about it, but we have skipped over what the need is. We've talked about HR needs, but there's a civil service board that hears HR grievances. We've talked about ethical issues, but there's an ethics commission that exists to hear ethical issues. Talked about an audit function, but we have an independent internal auditor. So I would challenge us to try to figure out what function the city doesn't have that we need. And then if there's a charter change that needs to be made because of that, whether it's through creation of an IG office or placing that function somewhere else, so be it. But I feel like we've jumped a little bit ahead to creating the position without fully identifying what function we need to serve that doesn't already exist with the city.
Well said, Ron, thank you. Other than the HR issue, that seems to be the one thing that is a real issue. The others have been more independence and process oversight. Go ahead, Bill.
Bobby, I'm gonna follow up. I have a couple of comments, but what do you see as the function that the IG or someone in that role would be, well, whatever it may be? What do you see it doing that we don't already do? I have some ideas. I'm not testing you on this, but I want you.
One more time, sorry, I was just trying to capture a thought.
Okay. Ron posed a good question. What role do you see an IG playing that provides a service that the city doesn't?
Fundamentally for me, it's a question of, do you want a stronger apolitical oversight on the way government investigates itself or not? And to me, that's the question. My answer to that is yes.
I agree with that, Bobby, so I'm just trying to answer Ron's question. Ron's question was a role question, and I personally don't speak for anyone else. I mean, independence is always a great thing. No one can argue with that, right? So the question, go ahead.
But I will acknowledge, I mean, these functions exist. You know, they could not, you know, part of the double negative, but they need to exist in government somewhere. They exist in the government, and Tampa acknowledge that, but like I said, for me, it's just a better mousetrap.
The independence. I don't, if someone mentioned that you have an ethics commission chair of it, or city president of Hillsborough County Bar, I don't look at that as an appropriate, mission to handle some of the issues that we're all talking about. That's, you got people coming in and out of that, they volunteer their time. I think what we're conceptually talking about is a appointed position law firm, someone who's actually paid to do the job. I think you're always better off when you have someone who you identify, okay, this is your job description, this is what you're paid to do. But Ron, I don't want to take anything, I mean, you made a good point. I think everyone agrees independence is a healthy, good thing, right? It is. But what would we charge that inspector general with doing? Maybe we need more, exactly what is it that they've done in these other cities? How is it different? They all seem to have audit committees, they all seem to have ethics committees, so they're clearly doing this. So I think it's something worth fleshing out. I think it's a good idea.
Well, and this goes to what Ron, though, we're just saying, let me give just a real world specific example of this. As an investigative reporter, I accused a major defense contractor of buying defective parts together on board military aircraft. And the Defense Department Inspector General investigated, because in a bureaucracy like that, you have so many vested interests between people who want being an efficient government and people who are concerned about an obvious problem. The Inspector General was free to investigate these allegations and determine whether or not, these were major problems or not. So I'm not thinking about an IG to duplicate the function of an auditor or even what HR traditionally does. This is for other things, so all parties can have confidence that if a problem arises, it will be looked at independently rather than the conclusion of any kind of query being politicized.
It doesn't have to be a permanent position either. Doral does a 2-year term, and then if needed, they can reinstate that person. Interest. But also too, we've talked tonight about how, well, if there's an ethics issue, we have an ethics board, or if there's an HR issue, we have an HR department. But what body or person controls the process in which someone goes through to go through an HR complaint or an ethics complaint, or whatever it may be? To me, that is the role of establishing this, is that person would look into the very process of our already established processes, right, or our boards that already exist. I don't think it's a specific task necessarily. I think it's an overall 30,000-foot view of waste, fraud, abuse, policies, etc. that this office or this person would be handed certain tasks by a committee that would be established and then execute on that. If it's a concern of, well, we don't want a situation like on the board where it's 10 or 15 different people, make it one person, have them have the ability to hire a couple people and have the term 2 years. They come in just like we do every 7, or I think we switched it to every 10 or 12 or whatever. It doesn't need to necessarily be an annual permanent position within the city or outside of the city. It could just be a simple independent review of the way our government runs. The reason we're talking about this, the reason we've had former city employees, the reason why council has came down here to this room to talk about fixing this charter to address these issues is because there are issues. And I think to say, well, we already have an ethics board, or we already have a specific body that deals with this stuff, frankly, it's not good enough. And so I think this has to be implemented strictly for the independents, just like Bobby said. I agree.
Are we, what's the, go ahead, actually,
To his point about the problem, let's try and solve the problem. Since the beginning, we've been saying, let's try to fix the problem. We're asking, what is the problem? And I'm being called to the carpet next month, if you did not know, to talk about what we've been doing in this room. And the thing is, we got presented with a bunch of questions, and when we got presented with those questions, it didn't come with why you're asking that question, like citing the issue that you were running into. So to your point, we have this in place, we have that in place. Well, it's not working. So that's why they're asking this question. And that's why Bobby and a lot of you have posed questions about certain things. And you're saying, well, why don't we do this? And I say, well, we already have that. Well, it must not be working because there are complaints and there are people getting fired and people leaving and, put so many things in public comment. So I think those are the problems that we need to address. And yeah, no, it's just, sometimes it's not even just a one-off, it's a bunch of people that's happening too, so, yeah.
Thank you, Ashley. Rebecca, and then I want to get a sense for the next steps. I'm sorry,
I was just gonna say, In addition to the director of internal audit, there are four staff people that report to them, so that department has 5 people.
Say it again, say it again.
There's 4 auditors, 2 senior, 2 regular auditors that report to the director of internal audit, so it's already a department of 5 people. And then the second thing is I keep going back to the fact that ethics is buried in HR. To me, that's a conflict of interest. Perceived conflict of interest, and it could be a real conflict of interest in certain situations, and I don't know how you've yet to find a solution to that. Assuming we all agree it's a problem.
The problem. Isn't it?
Just when it's appropriate, I'd like to ask a question.
Thanks, Ron. 1 second. Rebecca, do you want to jump in real quick before, because you already got it.
My question was for Garrett, and that was, what you're proposing sounds different than what Bobby is proposing.
What do you think each of us is part of it?
So what I heard Bobby say was that we have processes in place right now, and that the city would benefit, and I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, that the city would benefit by having an independent third party who worked in conjunction with those 3 existing or 2 existing, I guess, HR ethics. I mean, I'm conflating it, but to be an independent person that people could go to and then kind of filter it out if appropriate to these different boards or do their own independent investigations. What I heard you say was the city would be best served by having an independent person come in and look at those processes and determine whether they are running in the best way that they could. And then that would sunset. They would propose changes which would then either need to be adopted either by charter or by city council. And then those changes either would happen or would not happen in the position of some.
I'm a fan of baby steps, and so I was saying, a couple comments tonight were like, do we really want to establish this big board, like cost, I think was insinuated. I was more saying, if that is somebody's issue, maybe it's only a 24-month term or et cetera. I agree with Bobby. I'm in favor of what you just described. I think I'm in favor of both, to be honest. To me, the city of Doral did it a really interesting way. It was put up to the voters, a board was established, and a person was picked. And then that board had recommendations that that person dug into, and it was a 2-year term. To me, that's reasonable. There's a lot of other ways you can complicate that. I think, Bobby, you were describing more of a permanent office that these various organizations Rebecca described could go to resolve disputes, right? Or maybe I think you're right, maybe we're talking about 2 different things.
And we also go back to what I think your early question was, Bill, to Bobby, around broad or specific in the charter, because we're sort of solutioning this thing a little bit, which some of that permeates language as well, depending on how far we go. So I want to give Ron a chance to speak, but then I also want to maybe get a pulse on, are we in a similar situation where maybe seeing some sample language might be a good next step for us to react to, as opposed to solutioning, which is a little tricky to do. We probably all could have pieces of that, but it would never really be what we would do. I need to go to Ron, then to Stephen. Ron, go ahead, and then to Stephen.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, there was some discussion a little bit earlier about the questions that council posed to us and the mayor and other things like that and public commenters, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding correct. This specific issue was not one of the questions that was posed to us by city council, and it only came to us through a public comment, and it was one single public commenter. Is that correct? Or is there something else that I'm not remembering?
Correct. It did not come to us through questions from council. It came to us as one of the items that we didn't otherwise address discussing the charter, because many we did. Stephen.
Yeah, and I think we're.
Rob, it was one single public commenter that raised the issue?
One commenter raised it. I think people around the room that were saying the validity of this stretches beyond that one example, but I'll let
Well,
them.
yeah, I'm listening to the people in the room. It was just a yes or no question. Was it just one person who brought it up initially? One
more.
public commenter.
Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the question is. Did anybody from the public or did anybody from council specifically ask to create an inspector general position? No, I don't think that was a question, but a number of. At least one question from council did involve ability to conduct investigations. I think they were talking about them, but the topic investigations had come up, and I was responding. You know, using body language to, in the broader sense, or not the more specific sense, which I think was the way you were asking the question. The second thing I wanted to say is, I don't know who said it a second ago, but it's just. I think the comment was made that the ethics officer reports to the ethics commission, and they don't. The ethics officer then add duty on somebody that's buried in the HR work chart. So that was just a point of order that I wanted to throw out.
Thank you, that's, someone goes to Bill next, go ahead, Bill.
Whether it came from one citizen, or whether it came from city council, it's a issue, it's a fact, but again, I think this body, done a great job of it. What have we done? We roundtable those issues. We believe that's what we were asked to do. We are an independent board appointed by city council and the mayor's office. Certainly, we've been asked some questions. You know, I personally believe that we've answered every one of them. I think if you look back at the track record of what we've done, we have vetted. We don't have even have it. We
New business. Right, new business.
New business.
New business.
We have vetted the heck out of them. So I commented about, Stephen was just, I agree with everything you just said. Listen, at the end of the day, we think IG's the right thing to do. Well, you know, that's what we should do. If we don't, you know, then, you know, but I do think the idea, we can talk in circles. I mean, Ken coming up with some language for us to look at, and I personally, when I looked at this language about the zoning board, I think it was great to see something on paper, give me something to read, something to look at, something to think about. Ponder before I came to them, and I think that would be a great idea. Well,
I'm going to double check, did you want to say one last thing? Looked at me as if you might have Stevens as well, probably then Stephen, then we'll get a check on letter and the next step, but if you can bring us back sometime.
Sure, just real quick, just to tie up a couple of loose ends in the conversation. Kathleen mentioned if the function of the ethics commission can be expanded to include investigations. From my understanding, it's no, maybe Ken has more information on this, but I believe the state legislature passed a bill that was signed that limits ethics commission's ability to investigate this. Maybe that's something we have to look into, but that was something that
The limitation was on, the idea that things have to be identified, when we go for anonymous complaints, they have to be put forward. Don't understand.
The only thing I would add to the conversation is that I do think it's, you know, when you use the word inspector general, I think this goes to Alan's point that he's been made a couple times, just the people know what that means, whether you're an investigative journalist or you're, you know, a member of the media calling for just verification, or you're an employee or somebody making a complaint, if it goes to an inspector general. So that title alone is having somebody having the authority over that process, or, you know, that responsibility, I guess. And I, you know, I don't think it would be done by a volunteer, to Bobby's point, in the ethics commission. So I think they'd have to have the ability to have somebody on contract that's fulfilling an inspector general like role or services, and that they could then, you know, activate, I guess is what I'd say. And I'm just trying to think about it from a structural perspective, that you have some independence. I think inspector general, you know, is in most people in government's mind or in analysis, they understand that that's different than ethics and audit. You know, it might be a little bit more expansive, but you do have to work with all those entities. And I don't think that that's a full-time job and a full-time department. And I'm not one for adding government when we're going into this whole property tax conversation that's going to happen in the state of Florida. So I'm trying to figure out how we add the function with integrity for consideration it would not be a part of the HR department. It would either be part of the ethics commission or part of the general counsel or somebody somewhat independent. I mean, that would be my, sort of consideration as we're talking about this.
Thank you, Jack. Closure thought, I'll go to Steve, and then we'll see if you all agree with moving forward with Ken bringing this up here. Go ahead.
Actually, no, we'll see if we want to.
No, I'm not saying that the 2 years is like a no-go. Any and all ideas or options are appreciated. I just know that it takes a long time to get public records, and 2 years, you can blow half that time just waiting for discovery. So
You referred to the term concept?
yeah, the term concept, and that's, I can't, in my head, and there's sort of an time to figure out an alternative. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay. Maybe just a quick poll to gauge interest in having Ken bring back some options like he did for zoning. And I just have maybe just start with people online. Like I said, we don't need to do a full motion for this. Online, Kathleen, Ron, and Allison, are you in favor of Ken coming back with some language for us to at least consider and evolve our thinking around this for potential charter change? Kathleen first, yes or no?
Yes.
Ron? Allison? I'm sorry, my bad.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry, Rob. I was on mute. I'm not sure. Are we talking about language to create an inspector general office?
We're going to allow Ken to bring us options that would potentially do that broadly or more specifically. He'd have to work his magic for us to react to. It's really just to bring back something to look at and evaluate that's concrete.
Okay, thank you for the clarity. I'm a no.
Okay, show of hands in the room who would like for Ken to bring back options to address this need. We've got everyone with hands up, so we'll take that action and come back to you on that basis. Do you want to say something about it? Go ahead.
My question was gonna be if we have any thoughts about what we do or don't want to see in that language, do we offer that or do we just see what we get?
No,
Later with Ken. Let's not micromanage his.
But then, if we do that, aren't we only left with two very specific decisions? Shouldn't instead we vote whether or not to establish the office of Inspector General? And then based on that vote, then we can dig deeper into the details, like what if someone like me, for instance, is in favor of this, but for whatever reason, these two options don't include things I like, then I'm forced to vote no.
Ken, can you jump in here? How you would frame this? Because I think we're talking about a role, but you might even have something.
Just based on your conversation, I was seeing three tasks. One is an enhancement of what is already there in terms of ethics role with a separation out from HR. The next level up is a inspector general, but it's very general, very vague at the point. It's a requirement to have this, putting a lot on ordinance, whether it's going to be a permanent position, it's going to be a law firm. The third is a more detailed version, probably similar to the draft version, as to a particular position that's created with staff. That's what I was hearing from your conversation.
And I don't think here we're stuck voting on his three. I think what he's going to do is give us this. And we can then push back on and say, well, I like this, but I don't really know. How many meetings do we have left?
I mean, if there's two left. My point is, if there's a will of the board to send something up to council regarding this, shouldn't we just vote on that, establishing some sort of an inspector general office, and then we can choose, one of three to send to council. We haven't even had a motion and entertained a vote on if this is going up or not. I'm just saying, we only have how many meetings left? I mean, 2, right?
It's super little.
How it reads is a good point here. I mean, I personally would vote to send up the concept of an IG. How we build that, I just love the independence of it. So how we build it, I don't know yet, but if your question was how will I vote on whether we send up the concept of an IG, I mean, there's different things that have to unfold in the house. So that's just kind of what I said.
I'd support the function, but I don't support building an office because I think there's two distinct ways to look at it. But again, that's like, you know, if you're on a board, you're micromanaging the activity. I think saying that we support advocacy for a inspector general service or process is important. So
Just to get back to here, Ellen, go ahead, and then I had a thought.
Two points, to Garrett's point, if we just voted to establish an office and then let the city council, you know, iron out the details, I think we're just kicking the can to them. That we voted for establishment of an office and then they would have to start all the work to figure out what it is. The other thing that I'm sure there will be questions about is that we are adding a cost to the city at a time where the property tax issue is, we don't know what's going to happen. And the only thing I would say about that is, by the time, and even if the city council adopted our idea here, it would still go to the voters that next spring, where I would hope that there would be more light and more information about whether or not this property tax idea will be a yay or a nay. So that ultimately, it will be up to the voters of the city to decide whether this is money well spent, given the larger financial situation.
Assuming the council puts it through.
Yes.
And agrees with it.
Super quick, I wasn't suggesting we vote and then send it to council, I was suggesting we vote to send it to council with Ken coming back with charter suggestions. And then number two, I think it passes council and I think it passes the voters like 80%. I don't think the concern is, I think city council has been pushing this specific thing, in fact. I could be wrong, but I could have swore there was a question about this from council, and maybe that was said when Alan was here or something, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about this for a few reasons, and I have a good feeling council would be excited to see something like this, and I also think the voters would too.
Are you suggesting we need to ask a more direct question around using the word inspector general language, or
I'll work with the will of the board, I'm just saying, instead of a simple hand up, hand down, what if we entertained a real motion to push this up? And then looked at real language, I mean, maybe it's effectively the same thing. The path we're taking now is effectively the same. I just didn't want to be locked into a binary issue with one meeting left.
So,
one second, Bob, go ahead.
Again, trying to think about which way I wanna go with this. I could make a motion for something maybe we could all agree on, or do we wanna do this like?
Can you say it first and then we'll get to the motion?
I would move that we make it an office of Inspector General.
I would second that.
And go ahead, let's go through the motions and see if we have support to give Ken more direction on the specificity of the
Let's
list.
discuss the motion.
Yeah, whether comments before. Is that a formal motion or just I would make a motion?
I formally make a motion that
Yes.
we determine that we have an office of, that we have an Inspector General office. Or an
Language in the charter establishing. You said that, I'm just trying to make sure we're clear.
That's what I meant, we need language in the charter establishing an Inspector General. The implication is that it's not contract, it's not anything else, but that the word Inspector General is established in there, general.
you want to hear a second?
Yeah, I would second that, just maybe an amendment that it would, the creation through the charter of an Office of Inspector General Selection Committee to establish who this person is and what they will be inspecting.
For sure. I was trying to do it the optometrist, do we want an office, do we want a contract? Through an office, do we like that?
I think you can do a third party contract through an office. Right?
Yeah, that's again, more of a solution more to have from the function.
Right.
But you still have the IG office that Bob has just articulated.
There is actually, that's the rest of the IG.
That's the idea, as opposed to
Yes, they could
not that contract position. Because that's the black or white, I'm trying to see if we can get over there.
Office Okay, independent versus office work within the city, right?
What did you mean contract? Hiring a third party company that would come in.
Exactly, so it would be one that.
We talked about a law.
But I don't believe establishing the office would prevent my role. Or hiring a law firm or hiring. I think what you're asking for and what I'm saying is very high level, I think.
Good point, okay, I was just trying to make A or B,
Yeah.
but maybe it wasn't specific.
I think we all understood it, yeah, establish the office of IG. All here it is saying is that office of IG. If it was Bobby could hire a law firm to, you know, if it's in the budget, it was just him in doing something.
Right.
So, but you did accomplish what you were trying to accomplish.
Does everybody get what I'm
You wanna
talking
refine-
about?
you wanna refine-
Yeah, maybe I do.
I didn't refine it, okay, see if we get it tonight, and you can see if she's not there. Hold on, guys. I mean, I'd like
Just-
to, let's try the motion again, if everyone hears it, again, this will give Ken more specificity. That we get back to concretely, but go ahead, if we get a second, and we'll take also the participants, go ahead.
So I move that we amend the charter to include an inspector general.
I second that.
Can you hit admit to the person?
I'm sorry, Bobby, you broke up I just heard,
We also have a computer that's gonna be restarting him, this, the multiple is happening back in.
The motion, as I heard it, was to amend the charter to establish an inspector general. Bobby, did I hear that correct?
I'll second myself, yes, thank you, yes, that was the motion.
Thank
We have
you.
a second from,
And
Yes.
Garrett seconded it.
so Chair, we just need to take this motion forward for.
Okay.
Further
And
discussion.
we're gonna take a
Anything
recess
further?
about 10 minutes.
What?
We're gonna be taking a recess about 10 minutes because of. Yeah, all right.
Any further, I think you have to ask any discussion before we
It's
get.
been moved and properly second, discussion.
I just was curious if there's no other way independent was used to them.
Bias it again.
I'm not.
I was implied, but I'll.
I'm not asking for that, I'm just saying, is that something that we're gonna talk about later or?
No, that's for us, so.
Yeah, independent or not.
Yes, independent.
It's embedded in the concept, right? No.
Wait,
Yeah, explicitly say it though.
there's nothing implied. If we want to imply something, we have to restate the motion. I mean, we just have to be correct in our process.
Say it again, Bobby.
All right, here we go.
Your motion, Bob.
All right, look at this, hit me again. All right, so I move that we amend the charter to include an independent inspector general.
Second.
Are we gonna argue about what independent means now?
Right.
Does everybody know what that means?
Yes. It's been moved and properly seconded, any discussion?
Yes. I support the idea of an independent inspector general position, but not necessarily a full-time position, and that is what I understood you're saying, and so therefore I think you were asking for that distinction, and so while I support that other concept, I will be voting no to your specific.
Fair.
But just to clarify, I'm aligned with you in that, like if this particular position was only established for. Okay, not 2 years. 3 years, I would be in favor of that, so I think your hesitation. I share with you, but I've seconded the motion, I'm voting yes, so. Am I wrong in the way I'm thinking about this? Cause you're saying you
Yeah, why?
aren't sure if you want it full time.
I'm not sure I want it full-time, I'm not sure I want it forever. I am interested in both of the things that you all said. I was supportive of kind of coming back with some language that we could look at and then dive down. And I'm also supportive if we want to take a vote and say, I'm supportive of the concept, period. And then have a separate vote about Ken doing it, so we can say we had a vote that we all support the concept in general, but Bobby wanted to be specific, and I respect that he wants a position, a person there, and I'm not there yet. So that's why I respectfully say no to that specific motion.
So Bobby didn't say full-time or part-time though, so is it
Right.
broad enough for us to at least move the ball down the field as stated?
You don't need my vote, I don't think.
No, I know, I'm just.
We can vote, I wasn't trying to hold up the vote.
Sure. Understand.
I'm just trying.
Okay, so I think we've had discussion, we want
It's not full-time, what you're talking about.
to.
Should I stipulate?
No,
Okay.
we can still do a vote, let's do it on a summary stance, see if we can move this forward. Yes.
Okay. But we're still in discussion. How long was the term?
It's not a part of the motion.
Okay.
The motion
It
is
could
stated.
be anything, it's.
With some options.
But that, we're not voting on that, we're voting on.
Just.
Oh, and it is having the term.
Okay.
That's it.
Perhaps, if there's more refinement of what the motion would need to be in order to get it passed, Madam Chair, perhaps it's appropriate to ask Commissioner Bobby here to withdraw so that it could be discussed a little bit more now than refine the motion.
Well, we're already in the middle of the motion,
Call
so
to
we're gonna do the vote. Discussion's over. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Who says aye on the call, Ron? I don't hear, I see you don't hear you, so I'm assuming.
The chair hasn't called for no, but I'm a no vote.
All opposed.
I'm a
say-
no vote. I'm a no vote. I'm a no vote on this mission and I support what Rebecca said.
So Kathleen, Rebecca, and Ron are no's, everyone else is a yes, did I get that right, Rush, so she could capture that?
Yes.
All right, motion carried.
Okay,
And Ken, that will include some options on what Rebecca was saying, at least an option on whether this is part-time, full-time.
Yeah.
You'll address that issue.
Unless you tell me otherwise.
We would like you to address them.
No.
well, we can also tweak that language when we see it, right? So,
You've given me a title, so far.
right, and you got away from one of your three, down to a more specific, more tweaked language around IG, and we can work on that, part-time, full-time, we could go on and on, so Ken, and you're able, hands, okay. I need to just do a check. Where are we on our computer rebooting is, because it may make sense before we go to zoning to take a break and do that.
Yes, we
Now-
can restart now and we can.
Okay.
Recess.
Let's do that, let's take a break because we're gonna be, you've been here, we've all lived this experience and it forces you. So we will restart, we open the relevant documents and,
Recess for 10,
yeah, it's about 10 minutes.
just ability.
Okay, we'll do something. Okay, let's take a break and come back, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. All good? All right.
Zoom votes on. Next.
Yes, for those on Zoom, we're going to need to, computer thing forcing us to reboot. So what we'll do is,
If they get kicked off, they'll be logging.
yeah, you just have to log back in if you get kicked off, which is highly likely because it'll probably restart the computer. So just keep that in mind. Sorry for the inconvenience, we didn't see this one coming.
Do we need a motion for recess or no?
A motion to recess.
I don't think so.
Okay, I entertain a motion to recess. Move to recess.
Right.
It's been moved to properly seconded, discussion, all in favor say aye.
I'm,
Opposed? Right, motion carried.
Formalities.
I need a motion to use your emotions. Okay, guys, put your legs, we're going to shut this down, get going.
We do not know that. I went back through everything, like, there's not a lot of it. Yes. We just keep on.
did you just work on this?
No.
Did you get underway with that? Congratulations.
What'd you get?
What was that? What'd you get? Yeah, tell us about that.
I got a community champion award from the alumni.
When you guys get ready to start up, if you can hear me, just remember to unmute. Thank you.
So I feel like I'm looking at what like I know should do.
So we were focused on that.
Of course, you know, like. Our parts like it was really trying to figure out how to like get a transcript, if you just have an audio, it was like ask like AI stuff. Give her I asked it. And like, makes it very like, rock all the other stuff. And I was like, yo, I'm now like.
I agree.
Other libraries. You would just be very friendly, feel invited. Now, you're like, I just invited a lot of my friends, they're all invited. And see. That's all my people. Very good. Yeah, who wanted to start like a business today or something. They really good athletes. Who really comes on to my house.
We're gonna get started, guys. Get video back.
It's fine, you know, like. Yeah, we're over.
I have the way, like, I don't know who it is. Okay, here's. I'm gonna know. Here is my practice.
And what is the I agree, you gotta do it. Is a botanical garden, but now you guys said. So. There's a little bit to. It takes 20 minutes. You go to.
Yeah.
But it's very like, I send the file to me.
And that's probably what we did.
Yeah.
We're gonna get started, everyone. I did text Kathy to join. Hopefully she'll do it, but I'm not sure what the delay is there, but we can get started again. Was following World Cup, Spain won, just letting you know. Alright, so last time we had one action item, which we forgot to do, what he's about to walk you through. I did want to mention, if you remember prior, one of the possible actions we requested at the same time that what was the name? Julia Mandel arrived, and we talked about having Keely join us. She was on vacation. I didn't have her come tonight because we moved the discussion to the point where everyone here in principle advocated this direction and wanted to see language. So I felt like we had skipped over the need for that. If you want me to do that, I can. I just, in full disclosure, wanted to mention, I didn't reach out again since we did get to the point of asking Ken to come back with this. I think there's some compelling information from Julie, and I think I remember you, Bill, summarizing how that resonated as a potential way forward. So I'm gonna hand over to Ken, so he can explain the language and the distinctions between them. And then we can discuss what we want to do with it. Go ahead, Ken.
Sure. Well, hopefully you all saw before the meeting were two options. You guys want to come back? Two different ways of doing this. Obviously, it is very similar to what Hillsborough County uses in terms of their process. The more detailed one is option one. The idea being that the city would have one or more independent zoning officers. I use the same language that you have focused on, the idea of someone being appointed by the mayor and then confirmed by the council. We had a renewable term, we just picked 4 years as a first start with that. That could be obviously whatever you'd like to do. Then set out some qualifications, they either be a lawyer with expertise in this or a land planner with expertise in it. They would not have their elected office, they wouldn't have things that they would represent people in front of the city when it came down to their work. The concept here then is before the city council has a public hearing on a matter, it goes to this hearing officer. It has a public meeting, it has the basics of the due process that is required for zoning applications. And then requires this individual to have render a non-binding but written recommendation and findings of fact that then go to the council. The council public hearing then is limited to that record. The idea being you create the record at the zoning hearing officer stage, and then the council considers that record, and if someone had to appear at the lower level in order to then address it at the council, and with the ability to make exceptions under special circumstances. Has an implementation provision that then requires the city within 6 months to create an ordinance that pulls out all additional detail. The idea was not to put everything in the charter book, but not that it creates the framework of the decision. And you see we created a list here of the kind of things the disqualification standards, the notice requirements, procedures, all the nitty-gritty that goes into then making this process work. I did add to both provisions language that says we're not changing anything regarding the plan. Just to make sure there's not confusion with that. That's something you need to have in Hillsborough County. It didn't sound like you were asking to change any of that. The less detailed proposal, it simply puts the requirement on council to have either, and I brought on this, either an independent officer or a body, a planning board, zoning board kind of thing, that's designated by ordinance. It's basically your idea of having an interim review, but pushing the details of how that is, whether it's going to be a body, whether it's going to be an officer, push that out to ordinance. And it has the same kind of implementation provision as to all the details that need to put in, get that done in 6 months. And again, it's not intended to touch anything regarding the plan page. So a much higher level approach that you could put in the charter, which pushes a lot of the detail down the road, or you could come up with a more specific provision that yes, you're going to have an independent zoning hearing officer.
Sure.
So I think someone said this earlier, and everyone probably knows my theory of charters or charter should be high level, and we should not get into the level of detail. That being said, in this particular one of the main reasons that I heard people discussing it as something positive is that you were getting a professional recommendation, and the second one allows it to be a layperson body without any professional qualifications. And to me, that defeats a lot of the purpose. If you're just sending it out to people who don't have the training and the qualifications, because the hardest part about understanding land use, it's a foreign language, but once you get to foreign language, it's pretty simple. That being said, to me, the purpose of having a zoning administrator is you have an independent professional put your eyes on the case and pull out the facts and the rules and put them together in one document And a lay body isn't going to be able to provide that. And it's also very hard. Unless you're a trained professional hired specifically for that purpose, to not. Like, you know, if I'm a member, I am in some ways, I am a member of my neighborhood association, it's really hard. You're putting those people in the same position that city council is in, you know, voting regarding their neighbors, and so. To me, the first one, creating the zoning hearing officer is important. If you're just gonna create another lay board, you're just creating another layer of bureaucracy that's not adding any value. That's my opinion.
One question, the first one, is that modeled significantly after the county? Yes. Okay. And to a comment, you know, zoning isn't an easy thing. I mean, I've had law partners that practice in zoning and talk to them all the time. I think it can be more complicated. So I think it is much better to have someone learned in that topic as a hearing pastor. I wouldn't want to sit on the board and make those decisions, do that analysis. I'd much rather have someone who's criteria. You know, I'm agreeing with Rebecca.
I just don't wanna imply that other people aren't capable of doing it. It's just, it's a specialized field with those languages,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say. If I do it, I'm not trying to be like, it's so important.
She won't say it, it's a challenge. I don't do it, so I can say that.
So two in favor of the more prescriptive suggestion. Without any specific edits, any other comments?
I agree with Rebecca. I just, that, you know, I know I've been pushing this since the very beginning. I think this is an independent zoning hearing officer or master zoning officer, or whatever's the right language. And then again, let that be further defined by whoever is responsible. But I think it's really important to have somebody who's a professional provide that service.
I agree with Rebecca that I think the more prescriptive recommendations is the way to go. Especially since we asked for it, but didn't get any, we may as well come up with what we think is the best solution. I mean that very respectfully. I do have a question, it sort of relates to that same topic of this kind of being done on arrival. If it gets to council, if it's not palatable to them from their perspective, and that's the perception that this might be taking decision-making authority away from them. I know it's not, but I would just like us to view it through that lens in every possible way before we push it forward, because I think there's already a perception out there that we're gonna propose something that's gonna take council's, you know, control out, not by them necessarily, but by folks in the community who are following this, because apparently people do that in their free time. Which I very much appreciate. So I was going to ask along that same train of thought, how the appointment process is handled at the county, since there is no. I guess this is the county administrator appointing and then the board confirms, or how does that work?
It's an application process.
Okay. Board. And the commission says, okay, I would be curious of having the conversation of doing something similar rather than having the appointment confirmation process for this work, just like a department.
So again,
So for example, the planning commission appointees apply to, I think they submit through the clerk. And they have to come and speak and the clerk verifies they meet the criteria. And they're appointed, I assume, by ordinance, and I'm assuming the mayor signs that to her, but. I think that looking at that process, which I think effectively is the same thing, because they all get to wait on it, so they all get to weigh in on it. It's just council gets to vote first and then the mayor signs, rather than this thing, so the mayor has to nominate somebody and then the council. Confirms them, especially since there's a perception of.
In your scenario, I'm trying to like lost. Who is nominated? They come in, they submit an application. The clerk interviews them to make sure they can check the boxes.
And for the planning commission board, the process is that there's a call for applicants.
Yeah.
And an application is put online. You fill out the application, you return it to the clerk verifies you meet it, and then you go before city council. And speak at city council, and then they go through a process of voting to pick who their nominee is. And that's
That makes more sense.
Name is ordinance, am I getting that?
It's most likely a resolution unless
Okay.
something here.
Thank you, yeah.
At the moment, no, that could be adapted though to it.
Stephen had great.
Well, it's just worded like a department head, and I'm gonna be very clear that this is not like a position in the mayor's cabinet, and I'm just worried it's gonna be perceived that way, so.
Let's make sure it's not. It's good language.
Any other comments I'm trying to write in? Go ahead, Lloyd.
This might be a dumb question, but in section C, it says only those persons who qualified as parties of record before the zoning hearing officer may participate in the city council public hearing. That doesn't include comment, does it? From the public?
It does, it requires that somebody for the public hearing on the zoning participate at the first level. If they're going to participate at the second one.
So the people who were against or with testimony would be at the zoning hearing master meeting. That would be wrapped up in a report and then go to council. And then if the parties wish to have further discussions, wherever the applicant is, which you will do when they're.
No, if someone participated at the first level, they can then participate again.
They could object again or support it, yeah.
The idea though is that they created the record at the first level. And then they're talking about the record that was created. It's not new information at that point. It's
That's you.
Kind of like new information.
solidify what the debate is about.
Can we summarize what was just requested for this language to be changed?
I took it as model the appointment process on the planning commission process.
Yes.
Correct.
I think everybody has a full open opportunity to participate at the hearing. There's no limit to who can participate in the first hearing, you don't have to receive notice, anyone can come in. And the second hearing, it's just saying that if you didn't choose to participate at the first hearing, you can't then just show up at the second hearing. Because the first hearing is the one where you're getting a record and they're taking facts and everything that everyone said. And so if new people come in and it's a whole new hearing, there's no point to the first hearing because the zoning hearing master didn't have the ability to hear that.
It would be more protective of of the city, so you don't have things going sideways, so then after the fact, you got to pursue the city. Many large chunks of money, building a record.
If there's maybe somebody, this happens a lot, things get 80% of their way through a process, then somebody hears about it, they're like, oh, I don't like that this change is happening. Could they just email a city council person, say, here's my opinion about what decision I would support you make? You know, you have the rezoning coming up in my neighborhood, I just found out about it. Public hearings already come and gone, I'm gonna email my city council person and say, hey, it's coming up. This is how it is.
Yeah, usually that level of detail will get worked out in the ordinance, how we're gonna handle it. The goal though of this kind of process is that the opinion and all as to a particular case gets heard at the first level. If there's nothing that ever stops a council from deciding I'm gonna send this back to the hearing officer to kind of a review or something. It's not. But the idea of if the goal is to have established a record, that you should then controls put on the access for that record. But you have to think about these things as quasi judicial. The fact that the council is sitting in a role that is different from the typical voting process.
I just want to make one point and then I want Ken to say whether I'm right or wrong, because I should be getting the vote, guys. But when you have the zoning hearing, right now, the two hearings go before city council. People emailing city council, having conversations with city council outside of the record is actually considered an ex parte communication and creates a presumption that something funny is going on. If it were to be challenged in court. So if city council was supposed to get one of those emails and they have to put it into the public record and disclose it and allow the other side to have an opportunity, otherwise just one side is talking to city council, it's considered a due process issue.
Just, I know it's gonna happen.
Oh, it happens,
Carolina.
it happens now, and they, in city council and their aides. Deal with it and have a process, you know, if they see them, then they disclose them on the record, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, that goes to the process.
You're right, it does, it will happen, and you never want to be in a position of telling people they can't contact their elected officials. It's just what the elected official does with that information. And that means a whole unique.
Just to do a check, it sounds like you're.
Yeah.
Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Rob, at the appropriate time, if I can make a comment.
Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you. First, Ken, very well done. You laid out both proposals, I think, as we asked you to, and I find them both to be well done. I listened to the discussion and lots of good points made. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt option 1 as presented.
Second,
Moved and properly seconded, any discussion?
and that, Ron, I'm assuming that your motion comes with the clarification that Stephen and others asked Ken to make about the appointment process. Is that fair?
Yes, with the clarification on the appointment process that Ken will draft.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I was gonna ask the same thing.
All right, okay.
I was just gonna say, what was the less detailed proposal? Was that long? I just wanted to take.
The less detailed, put the decision as far as whether to do this as a single officer, do this as a body, and all the details about that, put that out to ordinance. If you require the council to do this, to have a intermediate level of review, but push down the details. As you requested last time.
And Rebecca mentioned that a potential risk in that approach might be having people who are not as qualified to do, right, to do the function that you said out there to the bureaucracy.
If someone was not a land use attorney, for example.
Or a certified planner.
Right. This would put the burden on council to decide to, if they're gonna have a board, they gotta put qualifications on them, they have to be this or that, or that's fully open.
Yeah.
And Garrett, just to give you the benefit of my thought process and motioning on option 1, my feeling is if we put the more detailed option before city council, they can always take things out of it, but it gives them a full menu of how it might look that way.
Okay.
So we see any thoughts?
I have a question about what's in option 1. It's a little in the weeds, but since there was a motion to pick the in the weeds option. Got it, so. I'm not just asking you, Rebecca, but I think that you might have an answer maybe into the relationship, like, so if this goes forward. In Tampa, there are a number of zonings that are processed concurrently and contingent upon the approval of a companion plan amendment. How does that process work at the county when we're going to be having potentially this zoning hearing master, you have something for code compliance and also consistency with the comprehensive plan that is currently in place, but also the one that's about to be admitted into?
So at the county, because we both do things at the county, I've got a couple of days right now. At the county, you go through your comprehensive plan amendment, and then at some point you file your zoning. So at the end, they line up together. Okay, but I think the point that you're really asking is how do you review rezoning? And the rezoning is reviewed as if the comprehensive plan amendment passed. Not as if it did not pass, because you would be getting a comprehensive plan amendment if you didn't get rezoning. So the planning commission and your, whatever they call it, the planning growth management at the county assume that the comp plan passes, and when it goes before the county takes the comprehensive plan amendment first, and if it doesn't pass, you never get to your zoning.
So knowing that we do changes between first and second reading and negotiate on the fly and scale down a project and approve it again at the second reading, if the comp plan isn't passed. Is that still gonna be possible, or are they gonna have to get back in line if they change what the original application said, and zoning hearing master now has to review something totally different?
Right, and the idea here is you're assuming that an application is gonna stay the same. That you lock something at the first level, that's the decision that's gonna happen. It never stops someone from drawing an application and come back with something else. And if the comp plan doesn't pass, the rezoning is irrelevant, typically, because you're only asking for change to the comp plan if you have to. No one does that for fun. But the idea being, you're not changing the comp plan process because of the involvement of the planning commission and all that. Plus, and this is pretty much Louise, as you know, it's a different standard for review for comprehensive plan, and it's a legislative decision as opposed to a quasi judicial decision, so.
And to your, I think, sub question about the changes between first and second reading. That I don't think covered in here. That's something I think that they would probably deal with in the ordinance. At what level are you triggered to go back to your zoning hearing master? And that happens at the Board of County Commissioners. People come up and say, I'm changing my application based upon, you got a bad zoning hearing master recommendation, so now I'm gonna add a bigger buffer. Does that bigger buffer have to go back before the ZHM or does it go forward? But I don't think that has to be covered here.
But they're gonna have to draw a more specific line than probably how it's used. Sorry, and my last question is, are they gonna review comp plan amendments? Before they go to council, are they only reviewing this rezoning?
Comp plan amendments are legislative, and so
Not the way this language is.
Did we get a motion in a second?
Yes.
Yes, that's discussion.
Yes, I made a motion and it was seconded.
Okay.
Okay.
Doctor, who seconded?
Yes, allowed.
Bill seconded it.
Thank you.
Discussion over, awesome. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One nay, all right, it's been moved to part, sorry, motion carried.
Okay. Again, you have your homework, and you need to come back with that. Great, thanks everyone, thanks Ron for moving that forward for us. So let me get us back on track on agenda. Look at that, rapidly, so.
Just from a drafting standpoint, what I'm gonna do is take the language as updated with the planning commission and put it in your working charter draft. So you'll see where it fits into the charter.
And when you do, probably notify you guys will be notified. There's one more item that's was open-ended. If we remember, I probably didn't know, I apologize. I actually wanted to revisit the notion of exploratory language that would help reinforce the timely completion of projects. And we actually talked about that at length, the pros, the cons, the challenges, where it rightly belongs, but you brought it back up for a potential recommendation. Maybe, I think you can update it because I think you talked to your friend.
Yes, so, and then I have some 3 suggestions, I did upload it to SharePoint if y'all wanna read it yourself. But it's under document reference material, actually. Yeah. And so the first suggestion was mandate project execution schedule and progress report. Currently, section 4.01 of the charter states the mayor must furnish the council with information as may be requested. We could amend this section to mandate proactive reporting to mandate proactive reporting for capital projects underneath the Article 7 finance portion of the charter. The amendment would be require the administration to submit an estimated execution schedule or timeline for all approved capital projects within a certain number of days. If that's already in place, then I guess enforcing it would need to happen. Is that already in place?
In place in the charter or?
As far as schedule being submitted for steps to get a project done.
I wouldn't know how Tampa operates this time, of course, the charter is at a high level.
But it's not in the charter at the moment.
Oh, right.
But an ordinance that affects that.
Right. So I guess it was suggested that something be put in place in the charter. So that way, and I know you gotta take a higher level, lower level, and all stuff, whatever's going on right now is not working. So that's why I'm saying maybe we jump into the higher level where we mandate that a schedule be submitted to council. As far as production, execution of this project. And that way, the administration has to plan the project immediately without binding them to an impossible completion date by giving an estimate. You pair this with replacement requirement for the mayor to provide mandatory quarterly or biannual written progress reports to the council. Does that already happen?
Again, I don't
We
think
don't
it
know.
does based on what we talked about, but you guys may know more about what.
When you say does that happen, are you asking if there's a required submittal process or if
Yes.
somebody actually keeps a schedule internally?
Both,
Okay.
you know,
I'm not aware of there being a required submittal process, but I think it's safe to say that every project manager keeps a schedule. They're not as detailed and meets what you're describing. It's one thing.
Yeah, I would agree, that's my experience, everyone has a schedule. You
Maybe,
know,
it may not be a
they-
great schedule, but somebody's job to.
but if the schedule changes, of course, I think what should be suggested, update would be provided if this schedule just changes. And then if you got a question,
But the only thing was to add that the capital improvement program the city does manage, it is posted online, there are project by project. It sounds like you're looking for more detailed update to council.
yes. I know website was suggested to us and I showed her that website, she said, yeah, but that's not every project that the city has, those are much bigger projects or things that are kind of medium-sized projects that aren't as high a budget. But they may not be on this map that the CIT does.
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
the big infrastructure. Specifically.
Right, so but anything that funding is approved for, that's the project we're talking about, you know? Because obviously they spend their time voting on a project, it's important. Automatic hearings for stalled projects, section 2.14 of the charter currently grants the council the power to conduct investigations and hold hearings regarding city affairs. We can propose an amendment to standardize this process for delayed projects. The amendment would be to trigger create a trigger requiring the mayor to appear before council for a public hearing if a budgeted project has not reached a specific phase within 12 or 18 months of budget approval. It respects the realities of the construction delays, but prevents, this is why it works. It respects the realities of construction delays, but prevents projects from sitting in silent limbo. And if there are unexpected obstacles or permitting issues, the administration simply explains them on public record, maintaining transparency. And the final gets.
You said in that, the mayor would be the one that would have to come to city council, would there be another option instead of having the mayor be the one to have to come in?
It could be, but I like, you know, shoot, I think same thing, the mayor come to every city council, like, I feel like if it was something let's get this done together, because I don't want to. So I don't know, I feel like that may be something that would be an incentive to get something done, so that I don't have to come before. I know they only usually come forward for the budget. To suggest the budget or give recommendation, the budget's recommendation or whatever, but. I don't know, if that's something if they want to send a representative, they can't send a representative, I think that's what they do anyways now, but. For this next mayor, for upcoming mayor, future mayors, I just feel like, you know. Well, I just feel like, why do we have this feeling like this person is above coming to come speak before?
No, it's not, actually, my question had nothing to do with.
Yeah, I know that's not how you feel, but even like coming to speak to us, it's like, well, we shouldn't have the mayor to come, so like, no.
Yes, everything go on, but what you're saying was, I don't know how many projects are generally going on at one time. Hundreds, so all I was saying is the mayor's not gonna have really any knowledge of any one particular project, that's how a CEO operates, so I'm assuming there's gotta be someone who's in charge of the jobs that you could call that would have that knowledge. I just don't know.
I feel like, is that what's in place now, when the lady comes by and talks about projects?
Are you looking at me? I have no idea how the city
Yes. Okay.
does it, but
Administrator, whoever, usually,
Right.
you have to. It depends on if you're talking about the CRA budget, budget or the general fund budget.
Yeah.
if you see project managers are going out through public works or water. Depending on how you guys are structured, so
And so what we were saying earlier, if the processes that are working, that we have right now aren't working, try something different or suggest something different, so that's just a suggestion, because if we have to come to report. Clearly, that's not a big enough jump or impact enough to like try to move this project along. So that's why I think we had discussed maybe that being a suggestion, having the actual mayor. Explain this project, because they should know what's going on with it. In my head, yeah, I think they should. Even though it's hundreds of projects, if it's something that's being held up over a year or 18 months. Like, not saying it's behind a month or it's behind a week or something like that. I'm saying if something's held up for a significant amount of time, what's going on?
I just wanna make sure I got them all, there was. Mandated execution schedule and project reports was one, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah.
It's not right, but.
Mandated project execution schedules and progress which was one. And I'm dropping the SharePoint, that was a PDF, it's just this suggestion. Project completion. This was what had a conversation with city staff or former city staff member, and these were just some suggestions that we came up with. The second one, automatic hearings for stalled project, is the one I just explained, where the mayor comes. And just gives an update on what's going on with the project that's been stalled for 18 to 12 months. 3 was a lower threshold of auditing stalled projects, so currently you need a supermajority. If you just make it a simple majority vote for a project that may be slow rolled, or it's not being pushed through, or it's not happening as quickly as they would like to see, the council just would like a report, an audit of what's going on with that project. And as far as verbiage, this one I threw, and I'm gonna keep a shot at it. But verbiage, it removed, find it, the mayor shall, and here's verbiage. The mayor shall provide the city council with quarterly public reports regarding the status of all capital improvement projects exceeding an amount established by ordinance. Such reports shall include project milestones, expenditures to date, estimated completion dates, and explanations of any material delays. If a project experiences a material delay beyond its adopted implementation schedule, the mayor shall present a revised implementation plan at a public meeting of the city council. That's my full report.
so normally we spend quite a bit of time talking about the topic, we have more specificity. Do you wish to proceed with a motion for this group? To have something to react to, because I think that's probably the most expedient next step. All of those things could, I don't know how prescriptive we want to get with the charter, those are various ways you can move projects along. By shining more of a light on them
Yeah.
and putting some rigor around structure.
Yeah, one of them kind of explains how like this is kind of already in the charter as far as the council being able to initiate an investigation. But it's not happening, but as far as what it's saying with the charter, it's creating a trigger, so whether it's a time frame or dollar amount or something like that. And the third one about the threshold of auditing, that voting threshold, maybe a majority instead of a super majority. Other suggestion.
I mean, investigations and audits would suggest that something's really off the rails. But a predecessor to that would be what you seem to suggest, which is some structured quarterly staff reporting process, public staff reporting process, it would be public anyway. So I guess it really comes down to what do you suggest this group consider, and I don't want to jump the gun, but I think because we talked about this, we might be ready for a motion, then have a discussion about that motion and refine it. Otherwise, it could be a protracted process, and I just want to make sure we get to what you want.
Okay, what do we add? Do we have other things that may happen?
What did you mention? You mentioned investigations when you first started. But were you suggesting making, you know, an addition or subtraction to section 2.14 investigations? Because we talked about that before, and that actually was a question specific for council. So maybe we look at that section specifically to address this concern. And the word we were caught up on was legislative. So the first sentence is, in the exercise of its legislative powers, the council or any special committee thereof shall have the power to conduct investigations. And it goes on. I think we talked about, you know, do you remove that word legislative? Or to your point, do you add, you know, if a specific project has gone over 6 months or whatever, you know, council has the power to investigate.
Yeah, again, we said 12, 18.
Well, why don't you just ask a question, Jen? Is the.
Investigate.
So just tear me out on this, if the idea is that a project is so materially delayed that it's garnering attention, is that necessarily an investigation or just a staff report explaining what's happened and what corrective measures are being put in place? I think an investigation, correct me if I'm wrong, suggests, I wouldn't use the word nefarious, but suggests a different type of thing than projects, which are all often delayed for good reason. So I just want to make sure we're
So
practicing.
you don't like the word audit and investigation?
I think it's too.
I'm just asking the question whether or not that language is meant to be used for updates on projects, which are often, and there are often good reasons, or not, and then maybe there's some recourse, but I'm just throwing it back.
I think it's two different things. I think what you're describing as an update would be, like Marley said, a member of staff or a specific department coming and updating council for investigations. This is you know, compelling witnesses, production of evidence, right, issuing subpoenas, and the power to punish for contempt, which brings up an entirely new avenue of authority, which is the reason why I think this board was hesitant to do anything in this regard. But I think an update from a particular member of staff and then investigative authority are two entirely different things.
I would agree with that.
Garrett, just so I'm understanding, are you advocating one of those approaches?
Sorry, Ron and Bill are both going at the same time. No, Ron, one sec, Bill was going just a second ahead of you, then we'll go to you. Good.
Then the provision you read, I think, is completely separate than what Ashley was talking about. That is for something very different than the way projects.
Well,
I think.
what are you hearing is different?
Which.
No, you mentioned 2.14.
Yeah.
2.14, right, I'm saying, that doesn't seem like that fits with the idea of delaying projects. That's subpoenaing witnesses, that's something I think a lot different than even if they're, you know, good or bad reason, good or bad reason for the delay. I think you can accomplish what Ashley's concerned with, which I think is just making certain projects move as they should move, and if not, there needs to be an explanation why. That deals with subpoenas, that deals with contempt, that deals with a lot more than I think what you're, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't.
I think that we tapped into the investigations section because it does deal with subpoenas and it requires you to come explain what's going on with this project.
Can city council compel any, help me out here, the city council compel an employee to come in and talk?
Council can request a report on something.
Right.
The difference here, and what I'm hearing is you're mandating a set of reporting requirements, a set of processes in the charter, as opposed to the broader legislative investigative power. Is that's what I was hearing.
Yeah, I think Ron, you were about to ask something, if I was advocating for this one.
Yeah.
And the answer.
Thanks, Garrett.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I that's what I was at. You had laid out a few different options in explaining something, and I was asking if you were leaning in one of those directions or advocating for one of those.
What I was saying is this body has discussed this investigative authority in section 2.14 before, and if I remember correctly, the consensus was removing the word legislative power and giving council that super broad authority for subpoena power was a little too crazy, I think, for the board. I wasn't advocating one way or the other. I was bringing up section 2.14 because Ashley had brought up that could be a section we look at to potentially add language to, instead of removing the word legislative, for example, maybe you add in, if it's related to a delayed project, maybe.
Review reports.
I'm sort of spitballing, but that's what I was saying.
Understood. Thanks, Garrett.
Yeah.
Great, Stephen. I respect the idea. I think it's getting a little bit beyond what I would read as maybe even your intent, Ashley, which is that, you know, starting to tip the scales and who has what power. I think this actually is something that belongs more so in the section of the charter of the budget, because that is squarely within their oversight authority, and they are asked to weigh in on the use of the residual funds reported in March every year that as part of the fund balance. And I think that's the time that they need to understand if something was budgeted 18 months ago and hasn't been acted upon, because then they can reallocate the funds.
Right.
I don't think it should be, I mean, I'm taking a step back, I don't think this should be like this huge added duty that not everybody has to submit a monthly report and all that stuff. I think if we're just focused on accountability and does council have the information they need about stats of projects to decide, is the money just going to waste sitting on that project, or should it be moved? It should occur in the spring when the fund balance is reported, because that's when they actually have a second at the output.
Okay, well, so that was, thank you. That first option was adding a subsection under Article 7. In regard to mandating a proactive reporting for capital expenditure. And I mean like a whole little.
But I think it should be tied to their financial authority, not to them meddling in project management decisions, and I think that's squarely outside of their purview.
Okay.
In many other places in the chart, so.
Yeah.
So how do we make it within their purview? If I think you spend money on something and it doesn't get spent, like I feel like then that's my business. If I give you money to go spend money at the ice cream truck, the money doesn't get spent at the ice cream truck, but you still got this money in your room.
Well,
Like,
remember the other thing we talked about was even if there was something in the charter that said, you know, a road paving project has to be done within 18 months, well, what if it's not done? You know, even if council was to take the money away from that particular project. The road's not done. The road's not done, right?
It's really bad.
Can I make a comment too?
Yeah.
I just, we talked about this a little bit before, but I just want to make sure we don't conflate the fact that just because we budget for something doesn't mean the project should be or has to be done. It really, it's approving the money to spend for a project, but that's not a mandate to do the project under any circumstances. And so I think there's a bit of a conflation of a budget approval and a directive that the project has to be completed at under any circumstances. There may be good reasons why, and there are good reasons in all kinds of budgets why things are budgeted, but they just don't proceed.
understood. I took that,
I agree with that one, and that's why I think having it occur at a time when council can actually distribute the funds to something else. And frankly, it's a pet project and it shouldn't be in the budget anyway, it should be reported on so that the other council members they have pressure put on them to say, was this really the right thing to budget for? The administration is holding on it. Why not move the funds to something where everyone has consensus and wants to move forward? So I'm assuming your intent wasn't just like shoving projects through, but it was also making funds are being spent in a timely fashion on things that there's consensus on, and I think that would also accomplish that from the other perspective.
totally, and to go back to the whole, trope we've been trying to go with, what's the problem? Here we have a problem that I'm trying to figure out what the solution should be to this problem, that funds are being approved. And if they are not used, the projects aren't being executed in a timely fashion. How do we fix that? And if it's not being fixed on that lower level, is there something we could do? Are there other cities that do this Or I don't know. You know, we've asked you to go research other things. I should have asked you a few weeks ago to research if there's other cities that do this, or is there a way, or is Tampa just the best and we have the best city and we already have things and other people, other cities are looking at us. I know. But I feel like we have to be pioneers in some spaces and saying, you know, whether projects fall within a certain budget, they need to be done within X amount of months or whatever. If they are paving projects, if there's certain type of projects, like we need to have some timeframes mapped out. And that could be put in the charge out in rate.
One question. So if I understood correctly, Ken. If council wanted to receive reports on projects late by or over budget by being a parameter, they could request and would be given it, correct? Right. So if council wanted to turn the screws on project managers in a good way, to say, you know, you said to do these things, where are we on track? Today they could do that. That would increase the visibility of these things, more pressure on the departments, the PMs, that, you know, that always results in better performance. That's just a norm. But that doesn't happen today, correct? That's my understanding.
And like I said, there's a problem, something's broken.
I mean, I know the public sees that.
Either they're not doing it, if they have the ability to do it and they're not doing it, it's not happening. Or it is happening, 'cause I know I do see reports on some projects sometimes. But I guess it's something that's just not required. And so if we have projects that, you know, they're like, well, where are we on this and where are we on that? And the next meeting, let's call this person, because you have to call somebody to come to the next meeting and then wait a few meetings until that person can come. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that there is a trigger already put in place for the project manager. If this project is not done by this date, or if we haven't reached this phase by this date, I need to submit a written something. It doesn't have to, you have to come up there, or written something to say what the holdup is, and they can announce that or whatever. Or it can be put on a portal.
I guess before Bob, the reason I asked that is they're representing constituents who we've heard are unhappy with projects not being done. My question is why they're not asking for those staff reports, that would shine a light on those projects. And would require explanations just like you're requesting. So I don't know why they haven't, but if they have the authority to do so now in the charter, I'm asking what else is needed, just for the groups conversation we had on.
And yeah, when we talked about this the first time, that was kind of my original hang up, so just ask for what you want to hear from the staff, but it's, Stephen, you tied it in a way, I kind of digest this all at once and kind of read through it and listen to everybody. But I think you tied it in a way to the charter through the budgeting process. Can you say that again, just so I can work that in and try to multitask here and just.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is TOA unless we find a way to tie it back to what their job currently is. And that is to make sure, to budget for projects. And I don't have it in front of you, but I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to be budgeting for something unless it's a reasonable expectation that we can spend the money. So that, I don't know how. There's clearly a disconnect if the perception is that we're not doing that. To your point, I think that council really only has a couple of different things that they can do. When something isn't being acted upon, and that's to reappropriate the money. They can only do that when they set the budget, and then when the fund balance is reporting, which the fund balance is basically, when they approve the budget in September, it's based upon an assumption that the books are gonna end up getting trued up, and these are the conceptual numbers at the end of the year. That doesn't actually happen until March. So sometimes what's in the bank is more than what they budgeted for, and so there's additional money, and they kind of like all decide how they're gonna spend that. So I think before they make decisions about what to bring in that's new, before they make decisions about what that fund balance should be used for, they should know what projects have been hanging out that haven't been acted upon in 3 years. And potentially decide to divert those funds. If they're gonna cannibalize the fund balance, they should cannibalize projects that the administration doesn't want to move forward on.
And then it's the public facing part of it too. I'm not just concerned about like, just council knowing about what's going on. I feel like there should be a way for the public to know the progress of these things, whether they come on record and state it, and it can be 3 sentences, I don't care. But the reason why we have not started this project is because this is what's going on and that's it. Like, I just feel like there's no accountability and like, by the time the project reaches 3 years late, you're like, well, what's going on? Why is this not like, why don't y'all know what's going on? That's kind of alarming to me. That's a lot of money just sitting in limbo. And the way I had it, to my friends when I was having the conversation, if you give little Johnny 50 cents to go to the store to get something and he leaves out the house, little Johnny can go to the store, get what he needs or whatever. Little Johnny might get distracted. Little Johnny might break his leg on the way. But in the interim, so at some point you're gonna find out why little Johnny didn't get to the store and he doesn't make it there. So I just feel like that accountability isn't happening unless I ask you. And I'm like, but we just approved X amount of dollars for this project, why haven't we heard back about, like, I feel like it should be, they should want to tell you what's going on with the project, I don't know.
It's about your accountability.
Are you familiar with the on the city's website? There's a capital improvement project update that's it's searchable, and I'm not terribly familiar with it, but I'm just looking at it as we speak. It's got the title of each project, the project type, the status, the dollar amount, what district it affects, what fiscal year it was approved, and then you can click on the status and it gives you more info. I'm not sure that is at the level of detail you're talking about, but I just wondered, are you familiar with that
Yeah.
online mechanism?
Yes, the city staff that I spoke to, she's aware of it too, and she said, that's still not an adequate way to report what's going on with all the projects that are happening. So, and I didn't know what she meant by that, but she said that's why we just came up with some suggestions, but she said that wasn't the best, that was not the best system either.
So if we want to move forward with some sort of mechanism for reporting, I'm just trying to think of the way we would tie that in. Stephen, you're thinking it would be in the charter under where the budgeting procedures are, and we would have to decide on some sort of timeline threshold, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years. Just trying to figure out how we angle into this, into the charter language. If that's something that we want to keep in our head, right?
That's where we left it last time too. Like,
Should we ask somebody, like, is there anybody, either the budget officer, I do agree with Stephen, it could be in the budget section. And I think that there could be some time and terms in terms of an appropriated dollar amount. I think Ashley's just looking for more than just, you have to report on it. There has to be some action.
And
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how other cities handle this, but I think it's, and I don't know, I don't have enough of a understanding of what volume of the budget ends up in these protracted, unresolved projects. So I don't know, we either should ask the budget officer or somebody to come back to us with language. What we're trying to do is put more meat in their responsibility of fiscal management for project appropriated dollars. That's what it sounds like to me.
But I think, Kathleen, there's a presumption in that there are unjustified, protracted projects. I'm sure that things are delayed, right? But an outdoor construction project could be delayed from weather. It could be materials.
Oh, there's
aren't
1,000
available.
reasons. I mean, I've been in construction for 30 years, so I'm not.
Yeah,
and it's
no,
not,
I know.
But I do think that if there's a reportability in more than that, there's going to be an action taken if you don't get a defined, whatever, resolution. I don't know how big the problem is, I guess, and what we're trying to solve and what percentage of the budget is in this limbo area. Is it 2%? Is it 10%? Is it 1%?
But and this is, I guess, a question for Ashley. Are you more concerned with transparency or a mechanism to force a project forward?
I feel like with transparency, that would help with pushing the project forward.
Yeah. So it's just, yeah, I understand. So the question you're raising is, how do we give the public and others within the city who want the information?
Well, in the neighborhoods that are waiting for these projects and then they don't get done, like rational, reasons for the delay. That's explained and that's understood. I get that.
Yeah, it raises the question is it a charter amendment or is it a operational issue? And it does seem like
It might seem like there might be a language, like a sentence you could put in the budget sections, to Stephen's earlier point, that, somehow defines an action that is not a subpoena, but as some reportable action on a delay over a certain period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think setting a dollar amount at this moment in time is tricky because some projects that are of low dollar amount are of high value. And I don't just want to assume that we're only looking at the big stuff.
Right.
Big stuff actually gets over-reported on and the medium to small stuff gets under-reported. But just for context, since I don't know that we're gonna end this tonight, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. If anybody isn't clear on like what types of projects aren't being acted upon, just Google it. Because plenty of the council members have been speaking out about that recently. One big includes Spira trying to get fire stations done since he got on council. So I think if you're curious about the examples, go look them up. I don't think it's a huge dollar amount number, but that's one fire station is one fire station. It's very important to that community. So it's just
right.
And I'm really talking about performance at the end of the day. And how getting projects done is just one measure that you would hold the administration to in the delivery of services and projects and everything else. It's just another, so to me, the bigger question is around the performance of the man or team. And they're, anyway, I think it's just one piece of that conversation around what they're charged to go do, deliver.
I wanted to personally, that characterization, I'm viewing it strictly through the lens of city council approved the budget. They expect certain projects to be done that are committed to, they're not being done, either because the administration doesn't want to do them or because they're not feasible. I agree with Ashley, that should be reported on transparently, and each side should be brought to the table to explain why. Because the public has an expectation of some things.
and I think we talked about this last.
About it and not make it about, are they managing projects? Doing a good job or bad? I don't think that's how we should be viewing this. I think it's more about a fiduciary responsibility council.
It's a different lens for sure. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I think we talked about this last time. It's more of a question for Ken, but either in approving the project or approving the budget or by ordinance, the city council can require that certain information be made available to them or to the public, right? They can do it. They can do it that way, even if it's not in the charter.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is the difference here is having a mandated schedule of reporting versus upon request by.
But the council could mandate that themselves if they wanted to.
But they have it for some reason, so I'm just saying, yeah, I'm just saying, and maybe they don't want to do that because it's gonna seem like an attack every time. Hey, why do you keep asking about this project? Why do you keep asking about this project? If it's just mandated that you are going to do this, like this is the rule. Because it may seem like they may ask about some projects over the others, or not ask about certain projects, and then it's like, if it's just, or if it's in your production process, whoever the project manager is, to do this, if this is late, then it takes the hands off and just politicize, or why did you ask about the fire department, or why didn't you ask about our project, or why didn't you ask about this project, so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how we can move the ball down the field. Do we wanna see who's in favor of, just keep it really broad, having some language in section in Article 7 finances about reporting at all? It sounds like maybe that people are in favor of a budget change based on Stephen's expertise. That might be where it goes. Do we want to explore that?
We can.
I mean, just a quick yes or no, so we can kind of figure out where we're going with
Right, right, might even be a broader question, do we even believe the charter is the right place to try to get this done?
Sure.
So maybe we start with that and then we can zero into where it lands. So let's just to get a sense, not to do a formal motion. Sorry, I just want to make sure.
So keep down the can, so keep.
No, it has, and that's what this group is here to do, to either decide to stop kicking it or feel like it should be handled elsewhere. So how many, I'll ask those online in a second, Ron and Kathleen. Show of hands, how many think that some type of charter amendment should be done to address the issue of transparency, accountability, and delayed projects in the charter?
I'll vote for it now, but I might vote against it depending on the.
No, that's okay, just in principle, do we think the charter should be in place to try to fix this issue?
But
You're right. So it looks like, how many hands are up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, so that everyone in the room said that it's worth exploring charter language to help fix the issue or help ameliorate the issue. Ron and Kathleen, so we're gonna, that's a threat to at least move forward.
Well, I think we voted on that same question last time, and where we are. Is there a specific direction actually, or? I mean, what would be next? Would Ken look at the charter and?
Well, when we talked about it last time, we did not make any charter changes.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so-
We voted on.
But now we're saying the new ones. So I'm just saying what that looks like is.
That was
a
my
good question.
recollection. My recollection was this, you know, the consensus of the group was mostly that we wanted to move forward on something, and here we are.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I think it was still a little bit cloudy last time,
Okay.
we were talking about intervention or just transparency, which I think we did address just now. So now that,
and we don't wanna do intervention, we don't wanna force it, but I think some transparency is necessary in order to try to just shine a light. So that way it may be some type of push for things to move forward.
so maybe if instead it's a research task into what other cities do when it comes to reporting on the status of previously budgeted projects.
Yes,
And if the charter is the right spot for that, I'm sorry.
yeah, if there's
we're just kind of around, okay.
I don't want to be step first, I just want to put on the record that I'm not clear what a project is. Apparently, it's something smaller than a capital improvement project, because that is like defined in all capital letters. But is it every line item budget in the budget? I don't understand the legal. So I'm having a hard time,
Good question.
but I am all about transparency, and if it is, and I'm all about like, if this information is everywhere, how hard is it to get it somewhere that everyone can go look at it and not have to try and like call people and not get return from, whatever. Like if we can get, if everyone has it and it's just talking about putting it somewhere, and somehow that's not happening and it takes a charter change, I would probably support that, but I'm really not even sure what. I have a fundamental gap of understanding of what we're talking about, but I'm happy to vote to move it forward, we don't have to be that dead horse tonight, I just
What
want.
do we need to
Everyone
advance
can
the
learn it.
discussion, you know?
At some point, I'm gonna
Yeah.
need clarification.
So maybe you need, do we need research on this? What are the next steps? Because I have to reserve 15 minutes for your business tonight.
so if the fire, you put me at the end. The fire department,
You'll be right at the beginning of it.
the fire department, is that a capital or is that medium size?
The fire station example, the capital items,
That would be capital,
like that, so that would be.
road work. Streets,
Yeah, paving was in council's question.
you know,
Specifically.
there's.
But I agree, this does blend into like things councils asked for that haven't been acted upon, I think we should be very specific about asking.
So I should ask council members, what are some examples of medium? I can do that research and ask them.
I mean, we could, I don't know where you get there. I mean, this came about, I think, public interest, right? And it's.
So it was a council
I
question.
think the question is whether we ask Ken to look at what other cities do on things that their council has set aside money for. And see, you know, whether the checks to get it along the way, and then, you know, at least we'll have an idea of what other cities do.
Right.
And we can make a decision based on that.
So I can take a look and see if there's any language covering this issue.
Right, and if there's not, we need to be pioneers.
I mean, I would throw out if the administration has any suggested language and I'd be interested in hearing how. I'm sure they would agree that transparency is good, and if they have some way to frame this in a way that seems workable to them, that'd be.
I agree with that. And I'd also ask other, I mean, isn't there a city and county association in the state of Florida? I mean, there have to be people that are trying to get information quickly on the status of allocated appropriated dollar projects. So there might be some input we can get from them in terms of what is more than just sort of hoping that they report back. Like, what are other steps to encourage more active reporting?
And I want to make sure I understand that the request is expanded or not. So Kevin's gonna check on the charters, the language around transparency of project, on project delivery. Rebecca, did you add to that request?
If the administration wanted to suggest some language with some parameters, that something that would be workable on their end, it'd be interesting to hear.
That's the administration for charter language, is that I'm thinking?
Yes, parameters, anything they wanted to.
And this would be in the budget section, you're thinking, Rebecca?
Well, Stephen was thinking budget and I don't have.
Yeah, I was thinking budget.
Same question, and to the city council too.
Sure, like, I mean, the administration would be the one like providing it, so that's what I was thinking, like. I got some thoughts of
What's the dollar amount? or
yeah, or
dollar
like what's feasible or, you know. I don't know,
Yeah, maybe some help understanding precisely what we're asking for, so we know what we need.
anyone can give suggestions.
Right.
I mean, if it's just raw input around the topic, that's fine, I can do that, right, so.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that the administration asked us to look at the CIP viewer, and I think Ronnie brought that up and we never really dealt with it. I think that the CIP viewer is a communication tool that just presents the adopted CIP, which is not necessarily what we're asking. I think what we're asking more is about how the CIP changes from year to year. And are some projects getting on and staying on and not actually progressing forward in the development process. So if the same project is budgeted for design for 5 years in a row, it's gonna look like, yeah, every time you look at the CIP viewer, oh, it's in design, but really it's not, it was budgeted for design and never actually moved forward. So I don't think the CIP viewer actually answers the question that you're asking about if a project has been sitting on design for too long.
I think we more or less concluded it's helpful, but not enough. But what are we asking? Are we just asking, what are we asking administration for precisely? Are we just asking for them for ideas on ways to improve this? Are we asking them for their opinion of the issue? Are we asking for language? I'm the one asking, so I need to hear
Can we do the research first and then ask the administration? Because I agree with you, I wanna know what they have to say, I just don't want what they have to say to preempt whatever Ken wants.
Is that okay? So Ken can do the research. We'll decide next time. Okay, so.
And then let me just ask, as Ken does that research, what I would particularly like to know is when we look at other cities, do they have something in their charter? Not necessarily what are their policies and process. If other people want to see that other stuff too, great. But specifically anything that's in a charter of another city.
Yeah, agreed on, that's the language I got to.
That's
Okay.
great, but we need to be pioneers, so it's can't put for this, okay, that's it.
I skipped the slide
I'll
now.
tell you, we didn't discuss their questions, actually.
So just in terms of timetable, I know many of you asked, are we almost done, are we almost done? It all depends on what you guys want, and I follow your lead on this. We're certainly not done tonight, and we probably, or maybe may not be done next week. It really depends on if we get to the point where, like, let's say Ken comes back with that language around the hearing master and we bless it, right? It's really running the ground every single item we're talking about. And we're getting close to with this new issue. This is a new one. This could occupy a little chunk of time next week. We'll see how that goes. And all I can say is we'll play it by ear as to when we'll be done. And eventually we run out of time. We're getting close to that. Really was hoping end of August we would be done. And there's also time needed to assemble the final report, which I'd like your input on around things like lessons learned, how we can do better next time. So All I can tell you is we own our destiny here around the front tables, we're just here to support you, Ken and I would like to open the floor to new business for about 10-15 minutes. I think some folks would like to raise some issues, now's the time, and open it up.
Question, did we talk about the evening meetings? Did we talk about that already? The request for evening meetings? That we can.
Yeah, we have a recommendation around maximizing public opportunity to participate in government. So new business from.
One thing I raised a couple of weeks ago, Rob, was the video clip of one of the council meetings too. And there were, I'm assuming everyone's aware of this, there were 3 issues raised that were concerning me. The first was that there was someone here from the mayor's office somehow intimidating us. That was one issue that was raised. The second issue raised was whether we had fully vetted and discussed the questions posed to us from city council. That was issue 2. The third issue raised was that Rob, for some reason, somehow wasn't doing his job, so to speak, and maybe we didn't facilitate. So when I saw that, my reaction was a couple. One, and I hope y'all feel this way, I'm very proud of the work that this group has done. You all have worked very, very hard to come together as a group, listen to each other. We come from very divergent backgrounds, and it's a beautiful thing. I have to make independent decisions. I can't imagine anyone around this table is intimidated by anyone who's sitting in the room. As to vetting questions, my Lord, we have talked and talked and talked about all of the questions and all of the issues that have come before us. And then lastly, listen, I don't know how many of y'all have done. I'm probably the 50th one of these type situations I've been in when there's a facilitator. You have to have a facilitator, or else you just die. And Rob, I'm not going to get up hugging, but you've done a fine job in my opinion. Okay, so I don't know where we stand on this. I do know that there was a moment in time during one of those meetings they wanted to hear from us. They wanted to hear. They specifically said you and Ashley, but if there's anyone speaking to city council that's going to do Q&A, well, we have to be very, I think, circumspect and conscientious about that. In other words, if anyone, if it's you, if it's anyone of us, if you're speaking on behalf of the commission, then that's one thing. Speaking on behalf of yourself would be another thing. So I don't know where that stands with whether or not there's a follow-up on that, whether there's really is an expectation of someone to go there. But I really, when I listened to this, my reaction was selfish, not selfish, but it was a defensive one for all of us, because I do think we busted our tail the best job possible. So I wanted to put it out there. I don't know if anyone's heard back from anybody, but it really is an indication they want to hear from someone. Has anyone heard anything subsequent to that meeting?
At that meeting, they made a date for a.
Yeah, like on August 6th. But they didn't make, I didn't hear. There were 2 meetings. There were 2 meetings. And Stephen, I can't remember the exact date, within the last 30 days, but I watched one wherein the issue concerning.
June 11th.
June 11th.
At exactly.
Was it like during public comment? Or was it?
No, it was during business at 3 hours and 29 minutes and 50 seconds.
It was, I don't know, sorry, it was not a person, it was someone that sits on the front, successful.
Okay.
Made a comment about the intimidation one time. I'm not even sure.
I think you should.
Last time I played the clip of when they were talking about the special master. I think that what you're referring to might have been the same meeting.
It was just right before it.
It was June.
I thought there was a second, no, it was another, it was a meeting.
There were 2 meetings, but you played a clip, and this was right before you played the clip, and then I hadn't heard this clip. I just heard your clip, and I was like, wow, they seem really dismissive.
I didn't hear your clip.
And I was so confused about why you're so dismissive, and it's because I would think of this other clip which if anyone's interested, we can play if you haven't.
Yeah, which one do you would say, play? These are the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
they were two different.
We can play it, but I do want
Clear for land development code, construction services fees, and their times lines for July 16th.
Okay, yeah.
I have a motion, Councilman Carlson, second, Councilman Bureau, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, ayes have it. The last one is just one that I added, I've been hearing that. I haven't listened to all the Charter Review Commission meetings, but I've been hearing that they dismiss most or all of our questions that we asked. And now the mayor's political advisor is sitting there, some members feel intimidated by that and bullied to follow certain rules by the mayor. It's one thing if the mayor wants to send memos, but to push the committee in a certain direction. I guess what it means is if they're gonna do that, then we should go sit there as well. So that's a side issue, but I would like to make a motion to ask the Charter Review Committee to give us an update on the answers to our questions on July 30th. Okay, so have a representative come and give us their response to our questions. We had about 30 questions. We need to know whether they're going to answer our questions or not, and that's kind of the midpoint. And if they're not, then we need to figure out what we're going to do about it. I've been advised they dismissed all of our questions. So I have a motion from Councilman Carlson, a second from. So if I may, I'll second that, but can we get it like time within, like maybe 10 minutes? Oh, or 10 minutes. Yeah, just, I mean, for presentation for me? Yes, it is, yeah, just under one point, each part of the agenda, under presentation size. When I looked on July 30th, it looked to me like it was. It's a budget. Somebody's gonna have to drive. Unfortunately, probably we're gonna get it actually, but can you do that August 6th? Yeah, August 6th, August 6th. Okay, we have a motion, Councilman Carlson, for August 6th for the Charter Review Committee. I say, by the way, I said unfortunately, Ashley, because I think she's someone who wants to follow the questions. And there are others who disagree. It would be better for the ones who disagree to come in and tell us why. But anyway, so we have a motion from Councilman Carlson to have the Charter Review Commission come to the City Council to answer the web. There's something on the answers to our questions. Okay. What August 6th?
Yeah, this is just police.
August 6th is good.
Police is here.
I don't think I cut off anything, so.
Okay. At the last meeting, these two amazing gentlemen from alerted me to this conversation, we had to quick, listen to it. And it was asked, they asked me, haven't we have we spoke about all the questions, or talked about all the questions, and I shared, said, well, maybe, there were some questions that we didn't know the answer to, so we said, let's get back to you guys, and we went back to, I was wondering, like, have y'all gone to council and asked them what for clarity, sometimes we didn't want clarity on the question. And granted, I didn't go to council making this claim, I don't know where it came from, so I can say that publicly, I don't know where it came from. But, I was like, maybe they're thinking I said, well, maybe there were some questions that we didn't get clarity on, we just kind of skipped over the questions. So I said, as a person that loves to research, what I want to do is go back and look through all these videos and their transcripts and pull up the questions that were posed and then put them in a spreadsheet. So now there is a spreadsheet with all the questions along with the YouTube link to the point where we had discussion. So we did. We did as a group, all right? So the questions are in a column, the answer to that question is in another column, and the reason why we came to that conclusion in the third column.
Where can we find this?
It is under documents, reference materials, Ashford review.
Ashley, did you work with this one?
Huh?
Was this with Ken and Rob?
Yes, because they put down the question.
Well, I'd like to refine that. I'd like to add a little, if I could just add a little context, since we were part of the conversation, otherwise I'll stay out of this. You know, my view is, of course, we've been through all the questions because I have records of it, both on the video, on the flip charts, some of us in the minutes, and in the tracking sheet, which I tried to make sure that it reflects everyone's preferences, to the level of being, because our minutes aren't he said, she said, word for word. Ashley took the steps to try to be very precise about our conversation, which went all over the board, depending on how much we knew, how much more information we needed, if we had a guest show up. So her working on that was done independently after those conversations to answer the question of yours, Bill. I haven't looked at it yet, I know it's out there. But that's what's happened. The assertion was that they were dismissed though, which I would hope everyone agrees is not the case.
I don't think they were.
You know, and how you get through answers to 25 questions, each with some sometimes very complicated summaries in a board meeting is a question I can't answer for you, Ashley, but that's what happened.
I won't say they were dismissed. There are some questions that I could not find our discussion. So just in transparency, yes, we did answer a lot of questions, but there were some questions that I thought that weren't on that question column. So I don't know if they got rolled into something else or something like that.
Did you leave, Ashley, did you leave if there was a question you didn't believe? If you believe wasn't answered, is that listed too? Is every single one of the questions, do we all have that?
Yes.
So we should all review that, make sure we agree with that. And Ken or Rob, you know, do you, like five
unanswered ones.
That I did not find like the.
5 of 30, correct?
And then maybe we can get to the bottom of whether they were, we'll look at them, right, we're gonna do our job, we're gonna look at them, maybe they were rolled up in something else, or maybe they're out there. We'll get to the bottom of those 5. If there are 5 that weren't answered, I think we could all say, well, then if we missed something, then we will roll up our sleeves and we will answer the question.
Okay, and then the next part, sorry. Yeah,
And for what it's worth, I don't see those as questions that we have to answer. I saw those as questions about the charter that we should consider. In other words, it's not within our scope to give advice to the city council on every question that they may have. It's to make recommendations on the charter. So we consider the questions that they said, but we don't have to answer the question. We may not know the answer to the question. We consider the issue and determine whether we think a charter amendment needs to be made.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. I know that was a huge amount of work, so thank you all for doing that.
Yeah, seriously.
I will say though, I'm a little concerned because I think that we have an end in sight. And I do think that my hope is that we are able to produce some tangible recommendations. And I personally think that we've spent most of our time trying to reverse engineer their questions to figure out what the problem was that they're trying to solve. And then re-engineer it back in a way that we're all comfortable with, if we even are. Like, I feel like that's been a lot of our discussion.
Yeah.
So my concern with just responding to a bunch of yes or no questions is that we're not really gonna do our job and it's just gonna take them off. So I think that if we are going to respond literally to the questions, then we also need to respond about what we're doing about the topics that they raised and the issues that they brought up and the potential problems that we think they might have been trying to solve and what we're doing about it.
Right.
And that's what Ron was saying, though, and there is, well, you know, it's not just a yes or no. We consider, I think, on most all of these. I don't think we just answer the question. I think we debate it seriously. Why is it that you would have this? What, you know, okay, that was the question. We took it as, let's evaluate, get to the bottom of it.
I think that whatever we do here has to come with a recommendation saying in the future, questions need to be put in context in terms of who's asking them and what is the specific or some specific examples of why this is an issue that's.
So when you come to the part that was my comment, so I spoke to Clinton and if I love all of them, I don't have issues with anybody. But what I explained to them is when you pose questions to us, we're gonna have a discussion. We don't know what the problem is. We're not in your space. You could say, we want 8 parking spots along Kennedy instead of 6. We're like, there's no problem. People are parking, it's not an issue, but you have all these. You have these documentation as to why there should be 8 instead of 6. I feel like what should happen instead of questions, maybe give us a suggestion for verbiage or what it should say or what should be added. And then I wouldn't have taken offense. I think they thought we would have taken offense to that as you're telling me what to put. We're not professional, we don't work in the city, we don't know all the inner workings, some of you may have some city experience and stuff, but I don't. So like, I don't know all the things that are going on or why who's coming to you and complaining, but just to make it short, I just think. And when I spoke to Linda, that's one, I think what would have helped is if you guys gave us recommendations rather than questions, because we're gonna have a discussion and it may work out for or against your favor or whatever, just not materialize into anything. It was also, discussed and Rob corrected me, about the fact that there was a suggestion that was put forward. I guess the mayor wrote the memo about the what's the word I'm looking for? The process of us having the appointment versus the something else.
It wasn't unsolicited.
Yes.
Right, it wasn't unsolicited, it was actually for us to collect more information about our decision.
Right, we asked for it, so when I had that conversation with him, he explained, Rob explained to me that wasn't something that was just sent to us, it was something that we asked for. So I guess my thing is, maybe for all these questions, we should pose it back at them and say, where do you want this in the charter? But now we're at the end.
Whoa, can I? No.
Now we're at the end. So,
No, actually, no, I just wanna make a comment, I wanna get to Stephen's body. So that you know. My view of the questions was very much, and if I missed 5, I'd be surprised, but I've been wrong before, it won't be the last time.
I shouldn't find.
But was more in line with what Ron said. And in my mind, what the council would get would be, we talk about questions, if they result in a charter language recommendation, we proceed with that. If they didn't, we capture the conversation, move on, we answer a yes or no, and move on. And again, in the absence of knowing what problems we were trying to fix, if you remember, we have, and I have most of this tracked. We were asking for more information repeatedly around these things to understand. Whether it was the chair coming, whether it was the CFO arriving, whether it was the planning commission, and some of that was probably just pure charter of you guys being interested in it. A lot of it was prompted by questions. We just didn't understand the underlying issues around. But for your benefit, in my mind, those questions were kind of guideposts, and if they led us toward a recommendation, we did it. And if they didn't, we completed the conversation, recorded our response, and moved on. So just letting you know how I did it. Bobby and then Stephen.
Okay, so operationally, what do we do from here? There needs to be a report created and presented by August 6th, is that Ashley and you and Ken?
Yeah, where's your logo?
What's
No,
our-
I don't know if that's the case, Greg,
Let me just ask, that clip that I just listened to was the first time I heard that. Was that officially communicated to us in any way, Rob?
No.
I don't think we do anything until something's communicated to us. I feel like we have talked a ton about the issues that were raised. We had the chair very kindly come and speak to us for a lengthy period of time about some of those questions. I took his tone from it consistent with my statement earlier, which is these are things for you to take into consideration. They weren't directives to do anything, or he didn't say to us when he was there, we want written answers from you. So I understand that it was said at a public meeting, but until something's communicated to us, I don't think we should do anything.
I think we should handle this the same way they handle it at the city. I think that Ashley should have a conversation with the chairman and let him know that the timeline for completing our work is in the very near future after that deadline, and that we would like him to please continue this report so that we can report on what they asked us to speak to, which is the answers to their questions. as well as the recommendations that resulted from the research that we did investigating the questions.
Okay.
I think that there's a way to do. I mean, one of the recommendations I was going to have in new business today is if we're getting to the point of our wind down, we should do a summary statement that we all sign and say, we're honored to have served in this purpose. We, honored to sort of try to build Tampa into the next generational city that attracts blah, blah, blah communities, diverse and active communities. And we welcomed all the input from the city council. We debated every point that they raised. We had how many outside speakers. We met this many times. That becomes a public document that they can't, with all due respect, and I don't deal with them and I don't have to lobby them and I don't have to interact with them except to vote for them or give them money. I think that there's sort of a little bit of group grope here. I mean, we took that verbatim, everything that they sent, and tussled with each one of those things over the last however many months we've been meeting. And they never asked for a report back. And frankly, we're an independent commission. So let's own our space. Let's be respectful. Let's do a summary statement and let's send our submissions forward. And then let the, personalities / egos / ownerships sort of fall where they lay. I mean, I feel like we were appointed and the audience is the public, and we dealt with the 3 issues, in my opinion, that have been the most meaningful. The other question was, that we asked ourselves is what are we trying to fix as we looked at all these different suggestions from the city council and the public and everybody else. So I don't want to get into a defensive position, and I won't. And whether we sign this letter or this note or this summary statement as a group or as an individual, I will send something like that so that there's a public document to the length and the depth and the integrity with which we looked at this charter review for the city of Tampa, which should be, and continues to be a great city leading Florida lots of ways forward. And with all due respect to the elected city councils, which I have huge respect for anybody that runs for office and wins that office, and I respect their service, they've got to also respect the service of the commission. So one of my new business points was I think we should try to see if we can figure out a summary statement that just lists out all the different people we did get input from and we sought input from and we listened to, and not be defensive in any way. I did not see the clip until I listened to it 10 minutes ago.
Those are that's good input, Kathleen. Thank you, Garrett, and then Alan.
Yeah, I think that's all fine. There was a motion at council that was approved for a summary and your name was brought up and you did this awesome work. Thank you. I wouldn't want to leave it at that and have you in a position where you don't have our backing as an entire group. Since it's our group being brought into question, I feel like we should operate as a cohesive body in support of you, the chair, as you deliver to council whatever they're asking for. Where did you leave it? You were telling the story about you met with the chair. Where did it was? Has he seen this yet?
No, I put it in, it's SharePoint, it's on.
Well, it's
Are
not.
they looking for just a presentation? Are they looking
Blow by blow.
to blow by blow, put you up there and
Yeah.
go through Q&A? It's what we were going with.
The thing was, I know we discussed all the questions, so in my head, I was like, okay, we're just gonna put something together to basically show. This was the answer and this is why we came to that. I did not dismiss Carl's concern about whether we went through all the questions, because I was like, I don't know, I'm not gonna complain, so let's put all the questions down and see. When I spoke to Clinton, his concern was that the only thing that we agreed to was the recommendation of the mayor, and that's what told me that wasn't unsolicited, we asked for that recommendation.
Remember, it wasn't a recommendation, it was more information related to how the last charter change affected IRA. wasn't a recommendation, I just want to be accurate, it was contextual. As we wanted more information, we wanted more real, like we talked about the pros and cons and what it meant to be higher denominated, and we said, why don't we find out? But it wouldn't matter, it wouldn't matter.
We reached the conclusion we thought was the right conclusion on each and every issue we addressed, period, end of story. Really.
That's why I feel the amended charter that we're going to present is the work product that speaks for itself. I mean, we did what we were asked to do, which is consider those issues and voted on them. And I thought,
Yeah, we did a
I'm
thoughtful review, a very
very
thoughtful,
proud of
substantive review.
what this group did. I mean, these are public meetings. Everything we said is recorded.
Thank God they're public. Let's go back and refresh. Remember who didn't want them to be public.
And don't get me wrong. I want to be clear. I'm not saying we'd be dismissive of what city council's asked. To the contrary, what I'm saying is I think that they will see when we produce the work product that we did vet those things. I mean, again, we did talk to the chair at length as a group, and we looked at what the city asked us to look at, and we came up with a work product that was come about honestly as a debate amongst this group. I don't think we should try to explain it in a written document, because I also think if we do that, it's gonna, each one of us is gonna wordsmith it, and I just don't, the work product for our group is the proposed charter amendments.
Thank you, Ron. I'll echo the sentiment that us agreeing on precisely what we discussed for each question. August 6th needs to be 2027 if we're to get that done. It will take a long time. I'm here for the duration, but let's be practical about it. I think that will be a difficult thing to coalesce around the next students.
I do believe that we received a specific request from the administration to change the charter back regarding the appointment process, and we agreed to it.
It's very early on.
So it was a recommendation, I'm just.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah, I think that we're getting a little bit caught up in the fact that it's going into silly season and we all knew this was gonna happen anyway. I don't think we should get too dramatic about it. I think we should treat them like adults. And Ashley should have a one-on-one and say, we need another month and we'll give you our final report. It's going to address the questions you asked yes or no, and it's also going to address other recommendations that we came up with throughout the process.
Just gonna do a little second, I think that I don't know if they're asking me for a full report on each question. I think they just wanted to know why are we ignoring the question.
And that's why it's not going to be an easy 10 minutes. This.
Ron, go ahead.
But then when if the question is posed, did you speak about this? I can say at time code, this and this.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, we have the proof.
So
I have to find out what this mysterious 5 are. I didn't know that we missed anybody. Go ahead.
So I'll preface this by saying I respect that certain council members feel a certain way. I would disagree with the characterization, but I personally find this conversation agonizing. This is so difficult to sit here and listen to. I feel like we need to keep our eye on the ball. We've got work to do. We don't have that much time. I agree with Stephen. If we could deal with this in a way where we say, hey, look, I made this beautiful work of research. Let me sit down with you one-on-one and explain where we're at. We gotta focus. We can't just get thrown off the trail right now. We gotta finish our job here. Like, this is just painful to sit here and listen to this conversation.
Right, so it gets back to something that Ron brought up a few minutes ago. Actually, were you requested and required to go to that city council meeting?
they made I guess maybe the communication hasn't come yet, but they made a motion and second and did all that stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
So
It hasn't come.
So they wanted to go forward.
They said maybe, I think they said maybe.
It's not you, it's.
But we can request a continuance just like anybody else can, especially if it's a timely date.
But I can
We're very
talk
close to
someone
being
online.
done.
That's the way to go.
Given the hour, you will meet again before that deadline. I will assume all of this conversation will get back to council, and I also think it would make sense to reach out
to the chairman to see if we have more clarification on what exactly they're asking for. And then have the opportunity to discuss that. Yes.
Okay,
And I think if they want, actually, I think that it's, not sure that it's appropriate for them to ask you to speak on behalf of the group. I mean, honestly, if anyone's going to go and
Yeah.
present substantively the changes, Ken is our counsel and can do that. Ken, I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but there's, these are, if they want to ask you actually about process or something and you want to talk to them, then certainly have at it. I have relationships with a lot of council members and I've talked to them along the way about things. I'm sure many of you have as well. But I think we should be careful too of them putting you on the spot to explain why something didn't happen, because we all have a plurality of views. If there's a no vote on something, if there's 9 votes, we may have 9 different reasons why we voted no. And I think it's unfair to ask you as an individual to substantively talk about the substance of it as opposed to the process, if that makes some sense.
Yeah, report him.
yeah, I'm
That's
gonna,
where it's gonna, that's,
I will call him and, I'll call him and,
yeah.
let him know what we discussed. Are we able to send this to them yet?
Or we what?
Able to send this to,
I would not say we haven't even looked at it.
I think we should wait, I think you should ask for it to be continued.
okay,
I think it might be good to talk about when we think we're gonna be done before we leave tonight, so that you know what to ask for in terms of the timeline. But I think that should get submitted at some point. I'm not saying no, it's just, I think we should wait till we finish, be clear of our vote.
But we all should wait.
As far as when we're being done, like I said earlier, Stephen, it's hard because we end up digging further into something which we it's here to do. Our deadline, I think if we pushed it, it would be the
September 17th.
I was really hoping, honestly, we would hopefully be done for August. I don't even know if that's the case anymore. But we've got another meeting this month and 2 in August. And honestly, we need some time to compile this, and I want to make sure we all have a chance to see those things. That you reviewed them, that when we add things like lessons learned, as Alan mentioned. I get your input on the process as much as the content as well. That's a really nice package. So, and that's gonna take a few weeks minimum anyway. So,
how much did we change? We changed a lot
what do you mean?
in the charter?
Well, I think everyone knows everything's documented, everything's highlighted, all the changes we've agreed to are already there and.
Not verbiage.
Rob,
In the
Rob,
chart-
what's going to take multiple meetings? I mean, we're having 3-hour meetings. We're already 20 minutes or 3 hour and 20 minutes tonight. What do you help me help us understand why we can't wrap up in one more meeting?
I think if I forced, for example, you to take a very direct motion, we vote, we say no, we move on, we can get done quickly. But since now we're asking, for example, more research on other charters, I'm not levying judgment against that. Then you have to digest that and decide what we do with that. So to your point, Ron, if I have this group's unanimous consent to push us harder than we have and leave less time for conversation and research, we can be done next meeting, 2 weeks from now. That would give us ample time, because I think it's gonna take 3 to 4 weeks to really make sure the product's where we want it to be. So I was kind of hoping, finish our substantive conversations next meeting. And then maybe one more virtual meeting where I really get your input on the process. Make sure you understand the review cycle around this deliverable and document. But it depends really on how much we want to discuss the items.
The last 2 issues that we've got the meeting ones are the Inspector General, right? That's coming back to us, and Ashley's issue. That's it, isn't it?
It's
Zoning, right?
Stick to zoning.
So zoning was issue.
We agree on the time, right, 8 to 1.
Right.
I don't know who the whole.
So it's pretty quick when we get language from Ken.
But that language is just how the.
I'm talking about the churches.
So we have language on most of those things
Yes.
that we're already pretty much aligned on. That should take about 10-15 minutes. We've come back to the concept around projects transparency, if it's in the charter or not. Remember, we said, well, we may need more information from council and administration. First, we want to do research. We go down that road, we're looking at a longer timetable, because one step includes the other, and it comes before. So. Don't know for sure if you'll see much around projects and delivery. Feels to me like you probably will, but I don't want to, again, I don't know. You come back and say, I haven't, then, so if we can buckle down and just commit to a little bit more rapid decision making, next meeting, ideally, we would be done. And do we wanna do that? That's the group. I'm following your pace while trying to respect your wishes to get things done. You should try.
I think,
So can we try to really, knuckle down and next meeting, if you not, maybe report to it. So that's a long answer, Ron, but
I don't
I
want.
think what we're saying is let's finish next week and then, when I say finish, I mean discussions. And then it's more around product, final reviews and input on that, which is an easier lift, right? We're not talking about charter anymore, right?
Can we just agree that we're gonna talk to whoever appointed us and say we all agree that we'd like to continue it till this day? We're working on the answers to their questions, but we're also working on finishing up and we're really close to being done.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
But I wouldn't say we're working on answers to their questions. I wouldn't, because I don't think we're answering the questions. I think the questions were for our consideration in order to do, I'm opposed to us answering, substantively every one of those questions. I think the question was, should we make a charter amendment? And we should discuss that and make a decision. So maybe you didn't mean this, but I would steer away from telling them that we're going to give them answers to those questions. I think we answer the question through whether there's a charter amendment or not. The question, every one of those questions was, should you amend the charter in light of this? And the answer is, we took all those into consideration, and here's the charter amendments that we suggest.
So Ron, is it better to say that we are working on responding to their motion as well as the charge that our committee was given?
I think that what Kathleen was saying earlier, I think, and I don't mean to put words in her mouth, if we all feel comfortable, and Rob, I would ask you to just, you did a good job facilitating this, and you, I think, intended to go through every one of those things that City Council raised, right? So could you just verify between now and the next meeting whether we missed anything? But I think all of our intent was to review all of them. And if we didn't, we'll go back and talk about them. But I think we should just say when we transmit the charter that we thank you for all of the questions. We would assure you as a group of 9 that we discussed all of those points, and this is our work product in light of that.
I will do that, Ron, and when I first received those questions, I actually mapped them to the charter. And I was intending on being comprehensive, I tend to be, if I missed any, I don't know how I did, but I'll revisit that, yes, and check on that for sure. But I don't know that I did, but if I did, I did.
And to be clear, Ashley didn't say you missed them. She just said she couldn't find in the transcript when we talked about it. So it may be that we didn't miss any.
I would go to the tracking document, that's all the questions live.
And 2 of the videos are not transcribed, so
So if you were looking and trying to find them in the transcripts or in the videos, I would not do that. I'd go to the document on SharePoint that here are our questions and go to the one we use and say, do we map them all? The other thing is just in context, right? If anyone wants to hear our conversation, aside from those first 2, it's out there. Like anyone can really hear the substance of our tongue. That is not information. It's
on YouTube.
And to be fair, Bill.
It's literally on YouTube.
He didn't say-
Anyone can listen to any of it at any time.
More importantly, I took the comments to be that some of us or somebody else who's sitting in the room in our galley in our audience were intimidating or causing others not to. If I heard that correctly, the audio was a little unclear to me because I'm on Zoom here, but I don't feel that way. And if anybody does feel that way, please speak up. But I think we ought to communicate that everybody here felt like they were heard and able to talk and raise issues, and we had good debate on all of the things that came up relative to the charter. I don't feel like anybody intimidated me or there was any. I was voted down on some things, but I respect the votes and felt good about every discussion we've had.
We're really proud of our discussion tonight.
We said that a while ago, about 30 minutes ago, no one felt intimidated, we're all good.
Well, we didn't ask the group the question, but no one said, yes, I did either. So I certainly, as a facilitator, I felt like everyone was trying to participate, like we had too much involved.
Stephen's right though, this is due after the next meeting, so we should talk about some sort of continuance. documents, and they've asked for it August 8th, that's right after the next meeting. So.
And maybe it's, why don't we get our final product and then decide if there's something we haven't addressed, because I don't know, I mean, it feels to me like we're gonna capture. We're gonna do what we were charged to do as a group, alright?
And you want us to go to, someone said go to our appointer, speak to them about,
Has to go through the chair, isn't it, should the chair, I mean, just.
well, here's my thing, here's transparent, this is just actually speaking. If the person that appointed you wanted something, then if Naya wanted me to do something or fight for something, I'll be fighting like hell for it, that's just what, that's the way I took it. But if some of your mind, y'all are like, we are our own person, we have our own opinions and all things, and that's fine, but. I would think the person that appointed me knows the issues going on in my community, so they're trying to tell me to come and speak about it, that's why I'm pushing what I'm pushing for right now. But if the person that you appointed is not championing that, or whatever your question was, then that's not on me. That's how I.
And Ashley, what?
That's what I told, what's it called? Linda.
Ashley, your point is well taken. I couldn't see the video clearly from here, but was it Councilman Carlson who raised that issue, or who was speaking?
Councilman Carlson.
And Bill, you're Councilman Carlson's appointee.
Yeah.
I would be comfortable authorizing you, Bill, to call Councilman Carlson and talk to him about it. Not that you need my authorization, but to speak on behalf of the group, I think, with him.
Discuss this with Bill. What do you mean, I'm authorized to do what? Call him and say what?
Or to show up at the meeting and speak on behalf of the group to answer his questions about our process. I mean, you're his appointee. You presumably carry the most credibility with him. He chose you. And if he has questions about the process, I would be comfortable with you being authorized on behalf of the group to go and address those questions.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's been moved to discussion.
Totally different subject and not very important, but you know what? Next time, or we should take a group picture.
Yeah, Alan, that's on my time hop. A photo of the last group.
That's like a cool.
Discussion, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, motion carried, we're doing it at 9:31. Thanks, Ashley. Thank y'all for your patience. So. I think.
Oh my God.
I was trying to get. I don't think this is I don't think this is.